All right, we'll try that again. Welcome to Induction Orientation. We're going to spend the next couple of hours talking about our program and what we're planning on doing and how you can earn your clear credential. We'll start with some introductions. My name is Steve Arneson, and my official position is the coordinator for beginning teacher support for Madera Unified. And this is my, I keep saying 10th, but I actually think it might be my 11th year in this position. Before that, I was an English teacher at Madera High School. And before that, I taught 6th grade in Granada at Chavez Middle School. And then before that, I taught econ and civics and world history and U.S. history and reading intervention for the Grand Unified, both at the Grand High School and Granada, their alternative high school. And then prior to that, I was a youth pastor for 15 years. I spent parts of my time in Wasco and Sheridan, Wyoming, and here and there. I was born and raised here, and went to, anyone at Howard would know that small fry's out there. I started with small fry, but at the time it was meeting at Madera High School. Went to John Adams, went to Thomas Jefferson, went to Madera High School, graduated in 1983. I graduated in 1983, and then did a year at Fresno City, and then went on to Biola University down south. Everyone thinks that getting older is horrible, and I'll tell you that the one drawback about getting older is things seem to kind of just break, and you're like, what the heck? But otherwise, I enjoy being 54 years old. I'm comfortable in what I know and what I don't know. I have some experience behind me, and I can see things that, because of my experience, I can see trends and see things coming. I tend to give better advice now than I ever have. And I'm just more secure in who I am. So I don't know, everyone says getting older is horrible. I enjoy it. I enjoy the life that I'm in right now. In your packet, there's a handbook, and there is a contact page. And not written in there is my cell number, and I would like you to write that down. We don't want to publish it, but I do want to give it out. A few years back, AT&T called me and said, "You've been a great customer in this store, and we want to give you unlimited calling and unlimited texting." There was a time, this is how old I am, when cell phones came out and it was $30, 30 minutes a month. And every minute over was $1. Yeah. You look at your cell phone bill now and you've got like 2,500 minutes. Can you imagine that cell phone bill? I will, in a moment of transparency, will tell you that I spend a lot of time out of the office. One of the things I am going to do is come visit you, and I'll let you know before I come. And I'll spend about 20 minutes in your class. But there's all kinds of meetings and so sometimes email can sit in my inbox and kind of marinate there for a couple of days. The best way to get a hold of me, especially with a quick question, is just send me a text. But when you do, tell me who you are, because I don't have your name on my contact list. So tell me who you are and what your question is, and I'll do my best to get back to you right away. If it's even more urgent and more detailed, you want to call me, go ahead. And you can always, of course, send an email. And I try to answer those quickly, but sometimes it's just next week I have all-day meetings on Monday and Tuesday, just 8-hour meetings. So, just the way it is. Okay, there is a sheet in your packet that says information about you with 3 questions on there, and I would like for you to take some time to fill that out. you're riding, I'll tell you that in the refrigerator there are cold drinks, and they're there for you. So please help yourself. There's water and soda in there, and there's coffee over here, and snacks. Please don't make me take it home. My wife will kill me. I think this is the 7th time I've done this year. My third Saturday, it's 6 or 7 times. Sometimes I get mixed up. I don't pay attention to the slides anymore. All right, you're going to get a chance to share those in a moment, but right now, I want you to introduce yourself. You don't have to stand up, but do talk loud. Tell me your name and your teaching assignment, your current teaching assignment. Tell me where you got your credential and how many years of experience do you have in teaching. And we're going to start at this front table right here.
My name is Ryan Dahlgren. I am at North Fork Elementary. Got my credential from Fresno State, and this is my first year teaching.
Nice. Beautiful, beautiful. North Fork. Way up on the right there in the middle of the North Fork, right?
Yep. Nowhere. Yep.
I'm Emily Stiles. I'm at Churchill Union High School. I'm the music director, and I got my degree at Fresno State and credential at National University.
And how many years of experience?
3.
3. Nice. Okay.
I'm Kimberly Stromer. I'm at John Adams. I'm a kindergarten teacher, love it. And I got my credential at National also. I have 10 years of teaching because I've subbed for 6 years and 3 years of actual teaching.
Very good.
I'm Chad Benham. I'm at Sherman Thomas Charter School. I got my credential from Cal State Teach, Fresno State. And it's my 3rd year.
Very good.
I'm Serena. I'm also at Churchill Union High School, and I got my credential for Fresno State, and this is my 2nd year.
All right. And you're at Churchill High School? What are you teaching there?
English 9 and English 10 honors.
And you said Stephen?
Sabrina.
Sabrina. So I don't think they heard you back there. So Sabrina, Churchill High School, and she's excited to be here, and she's going to buy you lunch. Oh, no.
My name is Stephanie Jimenez, and I am at PTC. I'm the SAI teacher there.
What the heck is that?
Specialized academic instruction. So it's basically SDC.
County Office of Ed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They have a new acronym now. It's called NXOS, but they don't like being called NXOS.
Yes. Well, and I had to get used to the SAI because I did 5 years in the Dairy Unified at Pershing. I was in our autism program, so we were SDC. So now I had to shift and use SAI. And I got my credential from Fresno State.
So, did you have a mild, moderate, now you're getting a moderate and severe, or?
So I'm mild to mod, and just mild to mod, so I just have to clear my level 2.
Level 2?
Or just clear my credentials, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, just clear.
You spoke a word that I wouldn't expect you to hear, so. Yeah, there's a big difference in SPED. There used to be, you would get a level 1, and then you go back to college, you get a level 2.
Yes.
And that's gone. And if you had somehow managed to squish in and get a level 1 6 years ago, and then you are now level 2, we would have had a whole different conversation. So you have a preliminary credential.
I have a prelim that expires next June. So I have to do a 1 year track, hopefully.
My name is Rosa Reese, and I am at Washuma in Milwaukee, teaching 1st grade. And this is, I guess, technically my 1st year, but I got my degree from UC Davis in 2008. So
Wow.
I taught 1 year kindergarten in Davis, and then I stayed home with my daughter, even though.
Okay, so you have a preliminary credential that it needs to be extended?
It actually expired in April, so I have to get this done.
And is it still expired? Did I sign something for you already and got that extended?
Yeah, so I can still teach, but I have to do this at the same time.
Right. Did I sign something for you?
You did.
Okay.
You did, we're good.
My name is Abby, and I'm at NXOS at the Early Intervention Program for Early Start. I just received our preliminary credential through Tulare County. And I've been in NXOS since 2007. I started as an I-8, and then in 2016 I became
Now, you have a counterpart that doesn't do that's what you do as well, is that correct? Do you like have half the assignments and one person does the other half, is that correct? You can't hear me. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we wear many hats.
Very good.
So, we're service coordinators, we go to the homes, we coordinating IT with the district.
Okay.
I'm Sally Lopez, and I also got my credential through Slurry County Office of Impact, and I'm also an early development social educator as well. And yes, like you said, we do a lot of different things. We do have a toddler classroom, but it's only like once a week. It's like our kind of modeling class.
Okay. Nice.
My name is Sylvia Dexter. I'm the Emirates Spanish teacher for Hamilton and Desmond. I got my credential from Fresno State, and so does with McPherson.
Oh, very good.
My name is Robin Simmons. I'm with Chawanakee. I'm at Hillside. I have a 4-5 combo. I got my credential 10 plus years ago, and taught for a year under my first year, and did my first year of business, and then took a 10-year break. So now I'm back at it with an extension for my preliminary.
Can I sign that one for you? I ask because if we need to get something fixed today, I want to make sure.
Okay. I'm not aware of any. I was working with someone from the Dare County office to help me get the
I think
preliminary.
she chased you down and got it. I remember.
Chances are good. So this is technically my 4th year of teaching, 2nd year of credential.
Very good.
My name's Dylan Grimes. I'm a math teacher at Minarets. I got my credential through National. This is my 3rd school year, but my first school year I started in January and took over for a teacher that left. So it's like my 2nd and a half.
Okay. Somehow we missed you last year.
Yeah, I'm from Bakersfield.
Okay.
I taught at Independence High School in Bakersfield, and then we just moved up through here.
Okay, so did you do induction in Bakersfield?
I did a year of induction for them.
Alright, so I need to make sure that you know you'll be in a 2nd year class. Most everyone else is going to be in the 1st year class.
Yeah.
And so I need to put your right name on a sticky note for me and say 2nd year from Bakersfield.
Yeah.
And tell me the school and district that you were at.
Okay.
Steve, do you need that information from me also? Because I'm technically 2nd year. My 1st year was through Fresno State, or Fresno County.
Yes. Yes. But yours is a little different. I want to talk to you a little bit more.
Hi, I'm Gilbert Mesa, and I'm co-teaching at Madera South High School, chemistry, and also SDC. And I got my Ed Specialist credential through National, and this is going to be my 4th year, started my 4th year.
Very good. Very good. Front table.
I'll go. I'm Rose Gar. I am the 3rd grade teacher at Sherman Charter School. I'm so excited. And I got my credential at William Jessup University, which is a tiny Christian school in Roseville area.
Okay.
And then this is my 3rd year in having a classroom, my 5th year generally teaching.
Okay. And but your 1st year with the preliminary credential? You've had it for a while? So how many missed you?
I've been somewhere else. I was at a private Christian school. They didn't offer it.
Right.
I was being paid private Christian school.
Is this your
that
first
way.
year at Sherman Thomas?
Because I've been subbing. We've talked about it before, so I'll go over it with
That's
you.
why your name.
Yeah.
Your name came up. Like,
Yeah.
Sometimes we get
Mine
missed.
is messy, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel horrible when somebody gets missed. And so now I'm like,
Because I've been subbing, so.
so
yeah.
we did talk, and we had. You all have to understand that there are 200 of you. I have 2 different programs. There's 200 of you. I have another 150, 175 mentors that I'm working with. And then every year your names change, and that's the bad side of being on 54 is that my long-term memory is fading, and it's too many. That's what it is. Anyway, now we got it covered.
Hi, I'm Pamela Burke. I am the K1 STC teacher at Chavez Elementary School. I got my credential for Fresno State with both SPED credentials there.
But you have a mild, moderate, and a
And
moderate
severe.
Wow.
And I'm
County
in my
office is going to call you.
3rd year of teaching, and well, I'm starting my 4th year,
Okay.
and I've done 1 year of induction through Fresno County Office Education.
Fantastic. So yeah.
And I have
Back table. Sorry, I should.
All right, back table.
I'm Tamara Harden. I teach at Webster Elementary in Madera Ranchos, 3rd grade. I think it's like the money year. They're still nice. Let's see. Got my credential at National, and I have 4 years experience, but it was reading intervention, so now I have to do this. That's it.
Great.
My name is Lydia Larson. I'm a music teacher. I teach general music for 3rd through 5th grade for Chowchilla Elementary School District. I got my credential at Stan State, and I taught 1 year on an internship last year teaching 7th grade.
Very good. Are you ready for band and all the things that are going on? And
I have an undergrad in music, so
you excited about it?
Yeah.
I just look at that and go, oh, there's so much work.
My name is Cassandra Neal. I teach at Reagan Elementary in Chowchilla. I got my credential from Cal State Teach, and this is my first year teaching.
Very good. Very good.
My name is Mary Mensch. I was originally an interpreter for 2 years for the deaf and hard of hearing through McSauce, and Heather over here convinced me to go back to school and become a teacher because we needed teachers for the deaf. So I've been teaching deaf and hard of hearing kids K through 3 for 3 years now, and I went through National University for my credential.
I'm Heather Franson. I got my credential through National. I was a sub-aide with McSauce for 7 years, and then I did 3 years of teacher subbing for Madera Unified and McSauce. This is my 4th year.
Very good. Glad to have you. And this day.
My name is Michael Land. I'm also at Minarets High through Chihuahua Unified. So I got credentialed for English and last year Spanish through Fresno Pacific University. I'm actually working on one right now for adult ed through Ventura County.
Nice.
So aside from kind of just subbing in grad school and all that stuff, this would be my 2nd year as a credentialed teacher for public school.
Very good.
My name is Yulia Valdez. I teach at Nishimoto. I teach 3rd grade. I have my credentials from Pacific University, and this is my 2nd year of teaching.
Very good.
My name is Ashley Martinez. I'm teaching ELD 4 over at Madera South. I got my credential through Fresno State. This is my 3rd year of teaching and my 2nd year in induction to Fresno.
Okay. You did the thing.
My name is Gerardo Gonzalez. I'm a 6th grade teacher at Sierra View Elementary. I got my credential through Fresno State, and this is my 1st year of teaching.
Ooh, in the 6th grade, you know that they're not pre-adolescent, they're pretty human.
My daughter's in 6th grade.
All right.
My class is
Let me add, I want to make sure, because it seems like every year we have some confusion, and I want to explain some things, and there's part of me that wants to explain it fast, and then in looking at my evaluation, sometimes I go through things too quickly. So I'm going to slow down a little bit, and it may seem redundant and maybe even boring, but it's important information before we move on, because it's possible somebody's here that should not be, and I want to make sure we cover that. So. I don't think I heard anybody with a CTE, a teaching assignment, and I don't think anyone has a CTE credential. You might be teaching nursing or ag welding or anything like that. Okay, so don't worry about that. In Madera Unified, we have a program called and we really mean preliminary credential teacher support, pre-credential support, and we call it PICS. Under our PICS umbrella are our provisional intern permit, our short-term staff permit, and our university intern. sometimes I have people that are confused because they were a PIP and now they're an intern or they're almost finished up an intern and they come to me and say, okay, I'm ready for NIC, I'm ready for induction. And so I want to make sure today that you know what kind of credential you have. And even as we talked, when does it expire? So we know June of 2020, and that's important to know. So think about it for a moment. You should have, if you're here today, a preliminary credential. If you don't, we're going to excuse you and invite you back when you do. Okay? In order to be in induction, and I'm going to explain this again later, you must have a preliminary. And we take care of Gen Ed, single subject and multiple subject, and Ed specialist. Now, in one of the questions that your HR person from County Office of Ed, Superintendent of Schools, Madera County Superintendent, maybe they were trying to get away from Merced County Office of Ed. MCOE was confusing. Just like in single subject, you have a biology teacher or an English teacher. An English teacher can't teach biology. A history teacher can't teach math. There are a whole bunch of designations under Ed specialists. So early childhood's one, deaf and hard of hearing is another, mild, moderate, moderate and severe, adaptive PE, I'm missing one. Emotionally disturbed, did I get them all?
I teach ED. I teach ED.
So did I get all the authorizations? I might have missed one. They all fall under Ed specialist. So we take care of all Ed specialists and all Gen Ed as it relates to earning a clear credential. And the requirement is you have to have that preliminary credential. Think about it for a moment. Did you go to a university and finished? My sped teachers took Eureka. You all passed your TPA. Some of you were lucky, you had 4 TPAs. Some of you were unfortunate and had 2 TPAs. But the 2 TPAs were massive, included a video. And she's like, yeah, because I just started. The rest of you all, what? All right. So you want to hear the sad news? I didn't have TPAs.
Yeah.
All right. So you finished all of your tests, and I listened very carefully. Every one of you has earned your credential in the state of California. Even that was a California credentialing program you went through. So all of you have EL authorization. So I have occasionally have some that move from another state and they don't, or they used an online program, and there's one in Washington D.C. called Teach Now. That's also an out-of-state that doesn't do EL. But I heard National, Fresno Pacific, Fresno State, Cal State Stanislaus, and I forgot the name of your university again. What was
William
it?
Jessup.
William Jessup University. Is that in the Bay Area?
No.
Where is-
Sacramento.
Sacramento?
Greater
Alright. Greater Sacramento. Alright, anyone else? In University of the Pacific? Davis is inside in California. We're good with Davis. But I did forget that one. So we have a smarty in the back room, guys. You see Davis. Woo, I'm impressed. Okay. Alright, so you are all here because you have a preliminary credential, and we've determined that some of you are not starting your first year. In fact, that sounds like the majority of you. We'll talk about that in depth in a moment. For now, what I'd like you to do is, in your table groups, share one of the first 2 answers. Save the third one for a moment, but you may share either your funniest moment or your best teaching moment with your table groups. One of those 2 first questions.
So I was just my way to use it.
Teaching style, and then just having this one's actually have fun and
He was being curious, but
so eventually have to
like calling him dead serious. He asked
That's random.
It was bizarre. It was beautiful fifth grade girl. I believe that they were so worried about Eddie. They were freaked out. Yeah, maybe she had a sister for the pipe. It was funny to me.
Well, I was teaching a social emotional lesson on forgiveness with my students, going through the process of forgiving, moving on, and setting boundaries. And my kids don't have a lot of experience with this, but they don't. But a couple of years ago, one of my students stole one of my sodas out of the refrigerator, and he denied it. He's denied it for 2 years. And so when I used an example yesterday when I was teaching this lesson, I said, you know, I know, George, you stole my soda. Didn't. I swear, Mrs. Prince, I didn't. Well, it doesn't matter because I've forgiven you and I've moved on and I've set the boundary that students can't get in the refrigerator anymore. And he goes, I swear I did. So I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. So they started writing in their journals and he looked like this. I did steal your soda. Everybody was laughing. And I said, I know. But I moved on. It was. It was.
Especially denying it after 2
2
years.
years.
So I just have younger kids, and they do good. I just, everyone's like, you're speaking to me. I've got this one kid that tries to be like that. We all need to. And like, I was showing like little videos. I plan on taking the kids like my kids always do random stuff. Well, like, show the penguin. The sign for penguin is actually like how it walks. And so you're like, that's what it does. He like sits there and waddles all the time. Like, he got all excited. So like anytime anybody sees a penguin, we're like, that's it. So and yesterday, Wednesday was like how to find things and there was this one prank phone and like the protection trying to look scary. So all the kids had to stay all the kids were the animals and now all my kids randomly just randomly like you should get bigger learning more visually than anything. They're never reading level. So we do a lot more visual videos. Almost a week. Yeah. And like nobody knows what you're doing. So like unless you're like in the classroom and you were there, like nobody else understands it. Like sometimes Jen maybe was gonna go. I got to see lots of really awesome dances for math education, so I play like an music every day, and they're songs that they know, they change the words, and I let them do that because they're going to sit there for hours quiet, and the dance moves that I have seen, I die every time, and some of them I'm like, there's no way. I'm not even going to address that because it's more attention to that behavior, but I get there so, except for right now, like, no Fortnite in my room, no Fortnite dancing, no flossing, it's a dangerous move, you're going to take your friend out. So, but they're funny. It's creepy. Some of the signs were like throwing their hands and stuff, so they were like, right? Like, that's what it is.
things coordinators, they still live in the car, they still one
We have a couple of episodes. Oh, and I got in I had the worst moment. Yeah, 6 hours. Right. Well, it sounded like 2 days. So 2 days and then oh yeah, so right, it's because it was. I'm like, I was saying that's like. Always. I have 2 kids that are involved in my school and they travel ball. They play travel ball for soccer. So like travel far. Oh, you go? Yeah, because they play competition. My youngest is 8 in the state. Yeah, but that's soccer practice every night for one or the other. And then soccer games all weekend. Jake is 7, so of course every single school activity. I go to school in Columbus. So it's like more I want to teach it. I did. Yeah, that's where I did. That's where I did. Yes. Like their introduction yeah, that's how, because I'm old now. So from the house, but I'm like, also not to run into the grocery store. That's what happened. Yeah, that's what happened.
Did everyone get a chance to share? Looks like we had a Okay, so this can be fun. At each table group, I'm going to point to that table, and when I do, you are going to point to one person at your table, and that person has to share their answer that they shared with the table group. So think about who had the best story, and who you want to pick on, or shame, or embarrass.
Sorry, that's what you get. You have to pick it.
Yeah. All right. And just like in church, you know that you always try to sit in the back, right? So you think if you sit in the back, no one's going to pick on you, but we're going to pick on this back table over here first. So now point.
Okay, so I have to stand up for this one. So I teach deaf kids, like I've already told everyone. And so some of the signs can get dangerous. Some you can whack someone in the face or hit somebody walking by. One of the last year I was talking to the kids. We're gonna go Monterey Bay Aquarium this year for a field trip. So one day I was showing the kids some videos of the live cam feeds and stuff, and I've got one kid that likes to be goofy. And the sign for penguin is like this, right? right? That's the actual sign for penguin. And so we were watching the live cam on the penguins, and one of them had the penguins like just shaking. And so one of my kids just started shaking all the time. So anytime we see a penguin, we now point at him, and we do his name sign and everything, and laugh. And he sits there and does it. And then this last week, on Wednesday, we were doing science, and it was just like second grade standard type of thing, and it was like, how do you find animals in the woods, and flip over rocks and logs and stuff, and it showed like 3 different animals and like what they do, and one of them was a praying mantis, and like you had to imitate the animals, right? So like one of them was a praying mantis, and it's like the self-defense. So they all curled up, just hanging out, and then all of a sudden, and like that's because that's the self-defense that the praying mantis tries to scare off me. So I've got a whole class sitting here going, and now randomly like recess, and if they're like waiting for the bus and they're bored, they'll just randomly go up to each other and go, and I've got a bunch of like gen ed kids and random kids just kind of looking at them going, what are they doing? I'm just sitting here like, science. So that was a couple of them.
Alright, we'll pick on our other back table. Point. Looks like you're raising your hand. She didn't even vote.
I know, I'm saying out of that. Right, what just happened?
Well, so my mentor came to observe me on Thursday, or 2 days ago. Sorry, I'm a little tired. And I was doing Eureka math, and I got these little packages done for my students with the number bonds, and I had my 8-year-old do these for me. So I said, hey, Isabella, get the erase markers and put 1 in each package. Well, she got the permanent markers. So, like, focus, I'm a little nervous, we're trying to do this, and then I'm, okay, friends, Miss Reeves, we cannot do this, we cannot, why not? I'm like, anyway, it was just, the mentor was laughing, I was laughing, the kids were laughing. It was just, I thought I had everything planned out. Yeah, that was it.
It happens. It happens. You have a lot of tech-based learning going on, and all of a sudden the web goes down, or you come to school and your printer doesn't work, or the copy machine's jammed. Or, you get there late thinking you can get to the copy machine and it's 7 people deep. So you got to punt to figure it out. All right, let's go to this table. Point. Looks like she's sharing.
I chose a best teaching moment, but this isn't like academic teaching. We had a student come to us on the first day of school. His parents, last minute, like 8 o'clock the night before, chose to enroll him in our school. And for all the information that we could gather about him, he had come to us completely shut down. He basically sat in his seat for the first week or so, non-reactive, non-responsive, wouldn't engage with his peers, and I made him my project. And so now we're 4 weeks in, and he's engaging in class, he's doing all of his peer shares, he's collaborating with his fellow students,
nice.
Trying to engage with them and, on the playground, has joined a sports team, so
wow.
He may be way behind as far as academics go, but socially, we have some successes.
Yay. Yay. All right, we'll go to this table. Point. Looks like you're up.
Oh, yeah.
So, first and foremost, caveat, I teach 5th and 6th grade. I teach my kids for 2 years. I loop. So, my kids, it becomes an everyday stand-up comedy fest at some point in my classroom. Needless to say, one day, so this is last year, 6th grade, 2nd year with them, all the kids are super comfy with me. One of the boys in my class just lets the biggest fart in the world rip. For everyone to hear, awkward moment, right? Everybody looks at him in the class, and he just looks up and goes, "What? Don't act like you're not impressed." Best ever. That was the greatest day. That was great.
Now I have to figure out what that is.
McKeever.
Alright, who's sharing it?
That was one of my favorites.
Alright, so this is probably more of a best teacher moment. In my first year of teaching, I exited a student from SCC into RSP.
Wow.
And he is getting A's and B's.
Nice. Nice. Very good. That's the goal, isn't it? Fantastic. All right. And we make this table, so we have our last table here in the front. Point.
Oh, okay. Something funny that happened during class is we use Google Docs and Chromebooks all the time. The kids can pick their own profile pictures. They usually pick logos or they pick famous people that they like. And I was looking at the student's profile, that little picture. It's like, wow, when the student, I didn't realize the student was balding. Maybe it's his old picture or something. Maybe, I don't know. I clicked on it and he put the picture of the principal as his profile picture. I don't know why, or maybe I was sleep deprived that day, but I was laughing so hard I had to step out.
When I started teaching at Granada Alternative High School, American Idol was just kind of coming on, and I had read the Harry Wong book. I did, like some of you, emergency credential, internship, national, paid all kind of money. But at any rate, I'm trying to relate to these kids, and I know that I'm a dork, but I'm trying to be cool. So I got them at the door, and we didn't have the knuckles, but it was all about high five, right? And I'm trying to be cool, like Randy Jackson. What up, dog? How you doing, man? Right? And they're all Hispanic students, and so I tried it in Spanish. Hey, ¿qué pasó, pero? They said, what'd you say, Mr. T? I said, oh no, what did I say? Apparently it doesn't translate as well into Spanish as it does into English. It literally means, what up, bitch? It doesn't have a good connotation to it at all.
But think about how cool you look at that.
All my wannabe gang kids coming through the door that I'm already scared of. They're taller than me. They did the same as you. They laughed. It actually broke the ice, but I didn't try that again. Another time I was teaching ELD history, and I had no business being an ELD history teacher, but okay, they had a slot and I was willing to accept it. I'm doing my best because I really don't speak Spanish, although I will tell you that when I was in Granada, my rule was, I said, the handbook says I'm supposed to write a referral every time you say a bad word. But I'm lazy, I don't want to write a referral. I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. If you'll do 10 push-ups instead of, I won't write your referral. And pretty soon it became a game. And the kids started catching each other, and sure enough, the swearing started to die down, and by Thanksgiving we had a pretty good handle on it. But the girls would say, Mr. T, they're saying a bad word in Spanish. And I'm like, well, what word is it? And we can't tell you it's a bad word. Okay. And then later on they said it again. I would say, is it the pinching word? Yes. What does it mean? It's a bad word. We can't tell you. So I have a whole bunch of bad words in my head in Spanish, and I have no idea what they mean.
Or if they are really bad words.
Yeah, they're bad.
Okay.
Even some of the slang words, I kind of got clues to what they were about. But I was teaching world history, ELD, and a new student came to class, and bless her heart, she didn't speak a word of English. And so I said, okay, class, say hi to Maria. And everyone said hi, Maria. And you could tell that she was really scared, right? I mean, first day, and things are really strange, and she's having a hard time communicating and understanding what the expectations are. And sure enough, Jose's sitting next to her, and I said, say hi to Maria, and he goes, what's up? Maria's eyes got about halfway around, and he did it again. What's up? I said, so yes. Maria is brand new to our class, and I don't think she's seen the Budweiser commercial, and I'm certain she doesn't speak any English, and has no idea what you're doing. Oh. And he turns to her and he goes, ¿Qué pasó? Kids, they can be very funny. Oh boy. That's what makes the days fun, because some days are hard, but when you can go home with a laugh. My wife teaches preschool at Washington Elementary, and every day she comes home with another funny story about a kid that did this or that. And one of the reasons why she likes her job so much. So. All right, your third question on your list are some concerns that you have about the year. And so we're just going to share some of those out, and I'm going to write them on the board. Some of them I'll be able to answer right away, and some of them will answer during the rest of the morning, and some I won't be able to answer. So, what are some concerns that you have?
I'm at PTC, and I'm learning so much because it's very different than what I'm used to. But it's an independent study school, but we also have a blended program on campus. And one of the things I've noticed is a lot of our students there come from very rough upbringings, and there's a huge lack of support at home. So that's one of my concerns, is actually teaching them and having that reinforced, I guess, at home. Or, I mean, we're kind of expecting them to take the initiative and, you know, do things. That's really hard. I feel like for a high schooler with no support at home or just the life that they're currently living.
Good. We will talk about that.
I have concerns on how to effectively access both 4 and 5 standards, to teach it effectively in the manner that's expected at my school site. We don't really use the book. It's great, every single.
It kind of falls under an umbrella of lesson planning,
yeah.
But standards. I think all, as we get into this, am I teaching this too easy? Am I too hard? Does an A really mean that you've mastered standards, or how do we figure this out? And yeah, we'll talk about that too. Good.
So along the same lines but different, getting through as much of the curriculum as we need to.
Pacing.
Well, mine's a little different, but just finding that balance between work and life. I mean, it's just.
I will tell you that I just went, part of my job is to train your mentors. In fact, that's who I see the most of. And we ran through our first sessions of training, and that came up every time. We talked about, hey, be a reminder, talk about how do we grade things. So as an English teacher, you freshman English, and you assign an essay, and it's due on Friday, because that seems like the natural due date. Now all of a sudden you have 180 essays that you need to correct by Monday. And after the third one, at least I was so bored. And the same mistakes over and over again. And so we learned how to make some shortcuts. Well, what I was really teaching was thesis. So all I'm going to grade is the thesis statement. I might look at some other things along the way and peer edit those out later. But really what I'm worried about is just the thesis. So I'm just going to read that part. Learning how to have peer correcting, and learning how to just get the essence of what we need to grade, and lesson planning, and where all that comes from, and to get you home by 4 or 5 o'clock instead of some of you are staying until 6 or 7 trying to plan for the next day. Our mentors are aware that this is an issue for you and are working on strategies to make sure that you do have balance, and to give you permission for a couple of things, but one, to say no. So, and I will tell you, and I want to come back to your concerns for a moment, but as I look around the room, I will tell you that you have changed compared to where we were 5 years ago. You would have been the typical person we would have had in the room, 23, 24, 25, just out of college in my first year of teaching. That was much more standard in our induction orientation. Today, if you look around, we see a very diverse age group and experience level, very different, right? But we also know that you have, now as you come to us as older, you have families, you're married, you have children, and this is a huge concern. And they are well aware of it, and they're going to help you with that. We'll talk about that. Good. What are some other concerns?
At least at my school site, since this is my second year there, there's this expectation that you're gonna take on more. So I have, last year I only had English 9, now I have 2 different preps to do in one prep period. I'm advising your club, I'm doing this, that expectation more.
Thank you. So one of the things we want our mentors to help you say is no. We want, some of you came through the intern program, and so you had 2 mentors, you were going to class full time, you were doing your GPAs, you were working full time, and then somebody said, hey, you want to do academic cathlon or yearbook, or would you be the volleyball coach? And you come from the corporate world where the more responsibilities you take on, you have an impression of the more valuable I am to the company or the corporation or the, in this case, the district. And I'm going to tell you right now that is not the case. You are solely evaluated and retained based on what's going on in the classroom. Learn to say no. It's okay to take a little bit on, but no, you're already feeling overwhelmed. Learn to say no. The second thing I would tell you, and I meant to tell you this a minute ago, is that we're going to tell you that it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. If you didn't make any mistakes, that means you already knew it. And then, so why do you even need to be here today, right? We're not there yet. It takes 5 years to learn how to teach, at least 5 years to learn how to teach. And there are things you don't even know to ask yet, let alone what the answers are. You don't know what you don't know. That's coming. We're going to help you with that. Okay. Other thoughts or concerns?
I have a concern. So I teach kindergarten, and we have a variety of children who come through, but you see a student who clearly has gone all year long and hasn't learned anything. So you've been pushing for SST, you've been pushing to help these students, and they tell you, well, they're just in kindergarten. In 3rd grade, they'll get the help. And then you see those same students 3 years later now in trouble in the office, and you can't advocate for them. Like, that's a concern I have, is you can clearly see that that student needs help and they can help them. How do you help
Your
them?
mentor can help advocate for you. Hopefully you have an administrator that's listening. But on the other side of it, there's some state law in the way, particularly if they marked primary language is not English at home. We're not even allowed to test them for 2 years.
Right.
So there's some non-common sense laws that are kind of prohibiting you from moving forward with them. But your mentor will advocate.
I've been through 2 SSTs, and they were both English speaking. And they basically pushed the parents to not help the child. And now those children are sitting in the office with coloring pages. So you're like, because the 1st grade teachers can't handle it. So anyways, sorry, that's my.
Get your mentor to help that. One of the things I haven't heard is classroom management.
Oh boy.
Is that what yours?
So, I teach ED. I have 9 through 12. I teach all the subjects. I don't get a prep period. I have kids in my class, one at the moment that I can definitely say he's not ED. He's conduct. He doesn't belong in my class. He is a complete and total distraction, and he destroys any form of a lesson that I could be giving at any given time. I've done the PBIS, and nothing is working for me. And I go home every day feeling defeated because of this one child.
Has your mentor been meeting with you yet?
I haven't met with her yet, but we are meeting Monday or Tuesday.
I would bring that up like almost as soon as you say your name. I have a problem. And see if she can start advocating for you to figure out what the labyrinth of documents and systems and maze of things that are because we don't want you to put on.
No, but I've been pushing for a reevaluation for a year and a half. It's just
sometimes though, if 2 of you are better than 1 to go forward and talk and say, help another psychologist, maybe a different one that's been on that case. Your mentor hopefully knows the right buttons to push to make them happen. If not, then has admin supportive of you and understanding what's going on?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hopefully that person will advocate also and say, okay, we need to do something. Having your admin come in and observe, see what's going on, would also be a key to that. Good. Classroom management for our new teachers is the first reason, the second reason, and the third reason teachers are dismissed. It is at the top of the heap. And many of you came through PIP, STIP, and intern, you realize that classroom management is something that you learn on the job. There's really no way around it. It's on the job training. You get all kinds of theory and practice going through your credential. But really, when you student teach, if you did it the traditional rate, it's the master teacher's system that's in place. If it's you on your own, you're trying this and that didn't work, and trying that and that didn't work. But we know that that is a concern. Our data shows it. So we tried really hard to mitigate that. And on your goldenrod piece of paper, that it says Madera Classroom Management Method, and it has a series of dates. There's 10 dates on there. Now that most of you all should be finished, some of you might be taking master classes, but all of you should be finished with college, and you have all kinds of free time now, so you can lay something else on your desk. This is completely optional. This is a choice that you can make or not make. You can say yes or no, and either way, my feelings aren't hurt. But I will tell you that there are 10 sessions in which we talk about physically setting up your room, how to decorate your room, and how that impacts student behavior. We talk about lesson planning. We talk about your body language, staying calm. We talk about your fight-flight reflex and how that kicks in and is causing you to be tired and also to not think clearly. And a whole plethora of things. We talk about how to relate to students and how to show empathy at the same time, boundaries. And so it's 10 sessions. We looked at a variety of ways of delivering this. One way would be if we'd had 3 Saturdays in a row that were 7 hours apiece, and we got the 21 hours out of the way. What we found is that this is a system. It's not this piece works for me, but this one doesn't. It's a system that layers each upon the next. And so we found a slow soak was better than a quick sprint. And we also know that too much information at once overwhelms you, and you can't absorb it, and so you cherry pick what you like and throw away the rest. But our management is a system, and you can't really throw pieces out or it kind of breaks down. We also know that you only remember about 10 or 15% of what you hear, and so if you sat for 21 hours trying to listen to all of this and you only took away 15%, it wouldn't be effective. We also recognize, though, that, gosh, it would have been great if we'd have had 3 days before school started or 3 Saturdays in a row as school starts to get this out of the way. We looked at both angles. We did, however, set the calendar in such a way so that it ends right about the time you're being evaluated. It ends about the time you're being evaluated, deliberately, so that whatever issues you have now with classroom management, hopefully you've corrected those. When you're evaluated, they don't show up. Okay? There's an opportunity. Did you say Sherman Thomas? I think you're okay. ETA is a little different, but almost all of you know how to get more money on your paycheck. You have a step, which means that for every year you go down a step and you get more money. So for every year of experience. And then for the units that you have after your bachelor's degree, you get columns. And in Madera Unified, it bumps over, I think it starts at 30, and then 45, and then 60, and then 75. So the more units you have, the better you get paid. How many of you would love to have another $1,500 this year, right? Another $150 a month, that's all right. And every year it builds on that. The way to do that is you get units. And I will tell you that if you come to our seminar, we will offer you the chance to buy 4 units. But there's a catch. You have to attend. And I'll tell you that the universities tell us that for every unit there must be 15 hours of instruction or seminar. Well, so we only have 20, so do the math there. We're missing 40 hours, right? 20 of those hours are done in your own classroom as a lab. I tried this, I moved this around, I did this. And we even send out a consultant, and she comes and coaches you, and she'll observe you as it relates to our teaching that we're doing on it. And then there is 20 hours of assignments. So we have to read this, write this up, reflect on this, gather data, analyze it. In total, 60 hours. Okay? So on the one hand, you can come to class, our seminar, and not get the units and not have to worry about the homework. That's okay, that's on you. And it's free. Or you can do all of the 60 hours and for $300, how many of you went to National and $300, that is in the third of a class, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about 4 units for $300. If you did the math, that's $75 a unit. Okay? That would help move you along the scale. And while I'm talking about that, I will tell you also that in the spring, we will offer you another 3 units through Fresno Pacific University. You don't have to be a concurrent student or a past student. Everybody's eligible. They want $300, so it's $100 a unit. And you will get 3 units from Fresno Pacific University. So you could potentially earn 7 units this year. Okay? All right. So there is an OMS. If you go to OMS, just email my admin assistant if you want to come, and we'll sign you up. And that's probably the easiest way. If you want to come. And we meet here in this room, and we go 4:30 to 6:30. And virtually all the dates but 2 are on Monday night. 2 of them are Tuesday because it follows a Monday holiday. Okay? This is our 3rd year of teaching this, and I'll tell you that it works. It works well.
What if we have to miss one because of daycare issues?
We can figure that out. One's acceptable. We film everything, and we'll put it in the classroom and let you watch it and still do the homework. But one's about all we will let you miss. Because we're working with the university. Now, if you're not taking the class and you want to, you can miss one. All right, y'all need a restroom break?
Yes.
All right, let's do that. Let's take a restroom break and then we'll come back and talk. 10 minutes. Let's see if we get done in 10 minutes. The restroom is in the cafeteria. The big, huge sign says staff room. Thank you.
I'm tired. I end my week every year, or every week, just exhausted. I have one kid in my chemo. And chemo makes me tired. It's fun. No, but nothing's growing. As far as I can tell right now. Some days I can't do it all. And then some days I just yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, we send out emails to everyone.
Okay, yeah, cool. I will definitely. Thank you.
I just don't want to get up. Are you thinking about whether I'm
I am.
I kind of want to. She's going to be like, oh, more homework. Oh, more school.
Well,
Where were you before?
are you all done with the masters? Good for you. So what do you have to do for that final project? Yeah.
Like you basically, for the research class, you basically write 2 of the chapters for your thesis, but then you can't just copy it over word for word. You have to change a lot of things. I'm like, it's like
I haven't decided if I want to do that or not.
it's worth it if you go on 2 pay grades. Like you go up 1 for the credential and then for your master's you go up another.
Yeah, here's 5th graders and 4th teachers. The 6th graders know some stuff. That's the only thing I really don't like about it is give me a couple weeks. Yeah, I can teach them skills. You can, and if you know how to shoot and you know how to dribble, that's pretty much all you can do anyway.
Okay.
So don't worry if you don't know a lot. Because I know a lot about basketball because I went to college for it, but I can only teach them. Like I finally got a play, inbound play, and a sideline play. Because they weren't getting the ball in. Well, we didn't have a snap to get it. Yes.
And I did the same thing.
Yeah. And you can find out on YouTube.
I taught for 5 years and like my last year of teaching, I co-taught, so I was home for like 50 years. And then I did it for residency, and I helped coach our
You got resources.
which allows me to be more like I work on so this is going do you ever look into extending it because there's
Sorry, oh, you didn't think I should tell you. Sorry, that's my master. I'm at third grade. Yeah, so if you have to take
I talked to her. Check it out and see how it's going.
I bet you, because they'd love to be there. That's what I wish I could have got my students here. Well, I think this is because it feels like you just got kindergartners are hard.
You guys keep your phones up. Why? He's afraid I'm gonna but I'm okay with it.
yeah.
We can find your sleep though. You should make it.
He just gotta have a white face.
Yes, and now we need
Didn't want to. But once I was in high school, my husband coached me, my basketball. So she listened to my voice. I didn't have it. Listen to my. Listen to. Once I just told him this because I see it. Because he was coaching with me. Yeah. Her mom and dad. I didn't think much. I was like, okay. That's nice. No problem. Change your mind. Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes you have the students. The first couple of like, we don't have right, that happens too. Someone was in and out of the door and I was like, we should go in sometimes.
What's she what? Yeah.
They're like having a school half. Oh, induction it's a different way of doing it. I want to start. I do enjoy like with the control. Yes. I just everything is there's no consistency. And I have to control my own consistency. I know what steps I don't know what this class gonna have on back. Like for the most part, I how to be like second experience, but really like so this is fine. But if I dump them up so you dump them up the dollar, come back and have this like really flat. I don't hear what
Alright guys, so keep going. We're going to continue on because I want to make sure we get you out of here. Just like you, I'm not getting paid today. Or I already got paid. Everyone is not, but I don't get paid just like you. And I'm anxious to get home as well.
Amen.
So let's keep going. Okay, let me tell you about our program. The Madera Induction Program is a regional consortium. And as you can tell by listening to the stories today, that while Madera Unified leads it, we are a county-wide program. So we cover all of the schools, all the districts, private schools, charter schools, all of them are under our umbrella, even though I work for Madera Unified. It is in its 20th year of operation and my 11th year of leading it. And well over 1,200 credential candidates have received their credential along with 450 different mentors that we've worked with. And at the heart of our program is you and our mentor teachers. Now, I'll tell you that some of you talked to some veteran teachers and you said, oh, I've got to go to VITSA. And they looked at you and their eyes just kind of glazed over and they went like this. Oh, VITSA. And they went through a time when they would take documents out of a box, they'd fill them out and put them in a binder, and then every one Saturday a month they would come to professional development, and then they had a nighttime meeting once a month, and it was a one-size-fits-all program, and they filled out binders that looked like those four on the shelf up there. And it was a one-size-fits-all program, and that caused issues for music teachers, PE teachers, art teachers, teachers that are only have one student per hour, that are in a traditional setting, and caused all kinds of issues. Furthermore, there was a lot of paperwork. They wanted to call it documents, but there were, so there was a lot of documents. And the theory was, well, I don't need this, it doesn't apply to me, too bad, do it anyway. It was one size fits all. In 2016, CTC said we want you to start operating on these new standards in 2017. Along with that, Governor Brown passed the Local Control Funding Act. VITSA was a grant-funded program. But if you know how the schools are funded now, there are no more state grants. There are still federal grants, but no more state grants. So out with the grants, we also took away VITSA. However, baked into the DNA of Ed Code and the credentialing programs was induction. BITSA was an induction program, and they said that the only way that you can clear your credential is through induction. And as recently as 4 years ago, 3 years ago, some of our universities offered a pathway for a clear credential by going back to school, but they still had, in fact, they borrowed all of the stuff from BITSA to create a program at the university level. And then the gen ed side of it faded away, and they did it just for our ed specialists. And they said, hey, if you take a clear program here at Fresno State, 2 more classes and you get a master's degree. And it was great. 2 more classes, I'm going to have to do this work anyway. And that's gone now as well. So there really isn't an alternative for you to earn a clear credential. In fact, the DNA in the Ed Code says that if your district offers induction, that's where you go. And we offer induction. So I hope you like me, because it literally means I own you for the next year or so. As I mentioned, as you talk to these veteran teachers that went through BITSA, and their eyes glaze over and they think, oh, that paperwork. Well, we rewrote the program. That new program we call Madera Induction Consortium to reflect that it's a county-wide program for everybody. But we think we removed about 75% of those documents. Yes, there's still some things I'm going to ask from you. In the past, we would say that we were mentoring through the documents, and now we say we are documenting the mentoring. We changed names not only for our program to call it NIC, but we also changed what we called you. You used to be participating teachers or PTs, and now you are induction candidates, or ICs. Sorry. We changed the name of the people that are supporting you. They used to be support providers, SPs, and now we have to fill them up because they are mentoring teachers or empty. Thank you. You guys can go. Especially if we would have stayed till 2. All right. And we have really, the heart of the program now is the conversations that you're going to have with your mentor teacher. All that documents and all this is due by this and all that, there are some of that, but mostly what we're at is how do I get better as a teacher? And we're going to start with where you are at versus assuming all of you are beginning teachers and this is your first day. We are really going to make this an individual program to meet your needs. And some of you have very unique band and all kinds of educational settings that is different than our core subjects of math, science, English, and history. So there are, it's very unique. We believe that we've made a much better program as a result. And that's what our data says. There are 7 components. When you meet with HR, they tell you you need to get into an induction program in order to clear your credential. It also says it at the bottom of your credential. So if you looked on CTC website, you all know how to look up your credential? Did you know that we can do a public search just using your first and last name? Or you can search using your birth date and ID, or you actually are supposed to create your own username and password for CTC. And at the bottom of your credential, it tells you how to renew it. And it'll say, this credential cannot be renewed. You must go to a state-approved induction program. And I will tell you that we are a state-approved induction program. Okay? Once you're there, you have some things to do, and you're going to commit to being in induction, and we're going to do that today. And part of the mandatory meetings that I have for you are 4, and today's 1. So we can check the box on that one. Induction orientation is going to be complete. There is a district and school level support that we are going to provide you. And I will tell you that in selecting a mentor teacher, there are 2 ways that happens. If you're working for Madera Unified, I take part in some or all of that selection in providing a mentor teacher for you. And we try really hard to find somebody on your site teaching what you're teaching. And if that doesn't work, then we find somebody on your site that's close to teaching what, or has in the past taught what you're teaching now. And if that can't happen, then we find somebody off-site that is absolutely teaching what you're teaching. So we work hard at that. The county schools, and everybody that's not Madera Unified, that's kind of how I refer to everybody that's outside of Madera Unified. Your district picks your mentor. So, and they've in talking with your administration, they have very similar criteria. We try to find somebody at your site teaching what you're teaching or close to it. Okay? But bottom line is, you don't have to go out and recruit a mentor teacher. We don't want you to do that. Even though you might meet somebody that's super nice, they may or may not be the best person to mentor you. Okay? All right. Your administrator and your mentor is going to be able to answer all of your local, district, and site questions. We actually have produced what we call a reflective question guide for our mentors that changes every month. And we try to make it germane to the month that you're in. So in our August, September reflective questions, we talk about how do I get a sub, what's the sub code, where do lesson plans go, how do I order things, how do I decorate my room, and which is a big thing, actually, decorating your room. And you should know this, and it's kind of funny, but I kind of buy into stereotypes, if you will. It's a bad word, but group dynamics. And I will tell you that, in my opinion, gentlemen decorate the room different than ladies do. If you'll look around this room, you can tell that this is a guy's room. There's nothing on the walls, right? We put up Michael Jordan. He says, read a book and we're good. And our ladies, they put up a tree in the corner, and it's got branches and then twisted right, and they've got things hanging off of the ceiling, and they've got.
Were you in my classroom during the Williams Act? Because that is exactly how I had my classroom.
See? And you have posters, and you have sentence starters, and you have all the adverbs listed, and right,
my
all
husband's
that.
a firefighter.
I don't know.
They made us take
Am I right, guys? Am I kind of telling the truth here?
Yeah, we could only have 50% of the walls covered.
I know it's kind of funny, but it's kind of true.
Yep.
I don't know why guys are just like, oh man.
Oh yeah, see?
Jordan's on the wall, I'm good.
Yeah, my husband's a firefighter.
No.
Our mentors can help you, and I actually have over here some borders
My husband comes in and sits
that
and goes,
are left over that are absolutely free. So if you're thinking that you need those fancy teacher borders, I've got a whole box over here that is for the taking. All right. In addition to kind of getting that support, we have an assignment called the Site Admin Consultation. And we are asking your mentors to help get this going, but you're supposed to meet with your administrator, hopefully in a group, and they are going to give you an orientation of the campus. They're going to tell you who's a key staff member, where's the bathroom, where do you park, and so physically walking around. You understand you all never, ever, ever mess with your admin assistant, right? Always bring your flowers and candy. Because if she gets ticked at you, you're in the doghouse for a long time. Right? Every time they need a sub, guess who they're going to call? Alright. In your packet, I gave you a sample. It looks like this. There is one. It is also in the Google Classroom, which I will show you in a moment. This is not a research assignment. It is not a scavenger hunt. It is meant for your administrator to answer the questions and for you to record the answers. What's the discipline policy? How do I handle an IEP? Who is supposed to go? Who follows up on accommodations? All of those kind of questions that we want our administrator to answer. And I will tell you that even within a district, from site to site, the answers can vary. Okay? Now, if you were in my pre-credential teacher support program in the past, you may have already done this. And if you understand Boy Scouts, like the arrow of light that goes from Cub Scouts to Boy Scouts, your site admin is the one assignment that you can carry over, and all you have to do is grab it from Google Drive and submit it. You're done. Okay? If you've already done this in the past, I do not want you to redo it. I do not believe in reduplicating work. But I think if you look at some of these questions, you'll see that's valuable information. But there's also a hidden agenda behind this. We know, and they don't teach you this in credentialing classes, that it's still scary to be called to the principal's office. When you get an email on Thursday afternoon that says, please meet me during your prep on Monday, and that's all they say, you go home all weekend going, crap, what did I do? Oh, no, I'm getting fired. I don't know what happened. And then they come back, hey, I need you to come and be on the prom committee. Couldn't put that in the subject line? Come on, dog. So, one of the things you find with the site admin consult is you get to know your principal on a different level when there's no pressure. And hopefully begin to forge a relationship with that person. So that's part of the hidden agenda behind that. Okay. I mentioned that we will assign you a mentor and get going right away. What I didn't tell you is we charge our mentors to have confidential conversations with you. This is critical. And on two levels. The first is your administrators, by ed code and by program standards and by signing an MOU with me, are prohibited from going to your administrator and snitching you out. They cannot go to your administrator and say, oh my gosh, have you been in Michael's class? It's a disaster. Kids are clawing on the desk, and no, they can't. Because as soon as they begin to talk in a negative way towards your administrator, they're contributing towards your evaluation. And they can't, by law, do that. So we say, snitches get stitches. In other words, I will tell you, if you've gotten to know me a little bit, I think that I'm a gentle, nice guy that tries to accommodate people and do everything I can to help. But I've also, now, I was telling you, I'm very comfortable where I'm at, and I have no problem reassigning a mentor. And I'll even go to county and go to the admin and say, look, this relationship's broken because trust has been violated and we need a new mentor. And I have fired mentors in the past, not very often, but I no longer get sick to my stomach when I have to go confront somebody like that. I've done it enough that I just say, okay, look, we're going to different direction. I don't care if you're mad at me. And I still have one at a site in town, she won't talk to me. And I'm like, okay, I don't really care. Get over it. And I'm really nice to her, I always say hi and smile, but she'll have none of that. Okay, whatever. That's the job description of being an administrator is. You gotta take it. And there's nothing I can do about it. I can't go complain to somebody about it. I talk to my wife. The second way that a teacher can't, or mentor can't, violate your trust is by gossiping about you. And actually happens more often than going to your admin. So they're in the lunchroom and they're saying, oh my gosh, Michael, and this and that, and then you find out about it. Are you going to be up to sharing more things that are going wrong in your class and things that you're struggling with? You're going to shut down. And that's something that you need to talk to me about right away. Okay? Sometimes, actually, more often than not, my induction candidates will come and talk to me in May and say, well, the year would have been better if, and they'll tell me some things about their mentor that either I could have corrected or I could have gotten a different mentor for. But now it's May, and there's nothing I can do. The year's over. So, in your handbook, there is a section on a reassignment of mentors, and that's something you can fill out and then email to me, and we can talk. I will tell you there's a procedure. I will sit down and talk with you. I will sit down and talk with your mentor and see if I can mediate some of this. Sometimes it's a misunderstanding or it's a scheduling conflict, but I will assess and determine if we can, and you'll either agree or disagree with me. I'll say, can we work this out? Oh yeah, we can do it. Okay, everybody's on the same page, we'll go forward. But if I assess that it's broken, then we get a reassignment and do something different. Okay? That's something that please understand, I'm here for you, not for your mentors. And yes, they're getting paid, they're getting a stipend, but it's not much. They're doing it because they like being a mentor. They like being around you. And I will tell you that some of them are building their resume. In our school district, I can look at half of them and say they've been in my program in one way or another. Usually a mentor first, before they were promoted to principal, vice principal, district office personnel. Okay. The standards state that by the 6th week of school, every induction candidate is supposed to write an individual learning plan. Now the handicap is we're starting a little late because we're already at the 4th week of school. So there's a little bit of work to be done for you that's a little more urgent. But we're going to help you with that. There is a packet that I sent out that talks about that. It looks like, you have one of those? It's on page 13, and there's also one there. Sure. Talks about the ILP. Okay. So, there is a document in your Google Classroom that looks like this. Okay? I haven't shown you Google Classroom yet, and your mentor knows all about this. It's called the Individual Learning Plan. Okay? This part's pretty easy to fill out. This is the only box that's due. Okay? The pathway and the outcome will be due in October. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to determine what areas you want to improve on as a teacher. The question is, well, how do I do that? How do I know what kind of a teacher I am today? And so there are a few assignments that we have that lead up to this. The first is that site admin consultation. The second is called a bridging document or a transition document, or I think Fresno State and Fresno Pacific call it the individual development plan. And it's 1 or 2 pages long, maybe 3. And it talks about the TPAs, and you probably sat down with your master teacher or your supervisor, and they said, when you get to induction, what do you want to do? What kind of goals do you have in mind when you get to induction? Do y'all remember something like that? No. That's okay if you don't. Most of you have. The institutions of higher learning are required by their standards to produce this document. Okay? And a bridging document, a transition document, it basically says, when I get to BITSA, this is what I want to do. And they might even say BITSA, even though BITSA doesn't exist anymore. Okay? That assignment is simply to grab it, talk to your mentor about it, and submit it via Google Classroom. If you can't find it, or never got one, not to worry. Somebody said 2008. They didn't have that back when. That's okay. There is a generic one in the classroom. It takes about 15 minutes to work on. It's not a big assignment. It's about 15 minutes long. And then you have a discussion with the mentor about, hey, these are some of the things I've been thinking about where I want to grow as a teacher. Okay? So, the site admin consultation and the transition document.
The app is on Google Classroom.
Everything I showed you is.
That is what we're turning in.
That's correct.
The
That's
15-minute assignment.
No. So, the transition document The generic one in the classroom, it takes 20 minutes to fill out, looks like this. And it relates back to your teacher performance expectations. Those are the standards in which universities live under for preparing you for your teaching career. Teacher performance expectations. They line up with the California standards for the teaching profession, or CSTPs, but they're a little bit different order. You may have a little bit of variation of wording. But it basically says, this is where I'm really good, and this is some areas that I really think I want to grow. What we want you to do is have that conversation so that it begins to move the compass needle toward what goals do I want to write for the year. Okay? If you have it, you don't need to do this. If you don't, no problem. It takes about 15 minutes, 20 minutes to work. The third thing we need you to do is called the self-assessment using the continuum. And in the classroom are the directions and the different sources of evidence codes that I'm going to talk about, and the continuum. And if you're familiar with Google Classroom, these are look at only, and you can file, click, make a copy, but this one's been assigned to you as an individual document. So it has your name on it, and it looks something like this. It's an electronic format, and it's a continuum or a rubric of where you are as a teacher today. It's kind of like on those commercials where you see the people that are going to go through the before and after on their diet or their exercise program, right? And they show you before, and then they show you after in the pants that don't fit. This is where you are before. Where are you in your teaching level right now? I will be honest and tell you this one probably takes about 2 hours. So this is the big one. And we want you to do each and every one of the elements, all the way 1 through 6. So some of them have 5 elements, some of them have 6 elements. We want you to highlight it, put a date, and then I mentioned those evidence codes. How do you know this is where I'm at on the rubrics? And I know because of, let's say, student work, or I know because of prior experience, or this was observed, or this is in my lesson plan, or there's several different codes that you can put in. I don't need the actual evidence. I just need you to refer so that you're showing, you're kind of pointing back to, I know this is where I'm at. And I'll be honest with you. I will not look at your assignments. There's way too many people. So I've hired 5 people to be readers. And they will be your reader for the entire year, but you won't know what their name is. It'll be Mick Reader number 4 or Mick Reader number 1. And they're going to read, and all they're looking for in this document is that you've highlighted and dated and put an evidence code in for each and every element. They're not going to make a judgment on whether you are accurate in your assessment. There's no way. We don't know who you are. We know your name, and that's about it. So this is all on you. Now, I will tell you that I have had teachers that started with integrating right here, and that's all they did, all the way down through all the elements. What does that tell us? You're not really taking this so serious. You're just checking the box to make sure it's done. Hey, look. It's the same thing I tell my friends at church. You get out of church what you put into it. You'll get out of this program what you put into it. And if you take this seriously, you will really understand this is where I'm at as a teacher on this particular standard. And then the question is going to be, are you a better teacher in May than you were here in September? And most of us will say, well, yeah, I think so. I mean, the administrator really didn't complain about me. They didn't come to my class but twice, and they didn't have a lot of good things to say, but no one complained, and no parents complained, and oh my gosh, the kids really like me, and yeah, I think I'm a better teacher. That's very, what do you call it, subjective, right? This is data, and it's objective. And you could say, I know I'm a better teacher because I improved on the continuum by this much. In fact, you're going to share that at the end of the year. How do I know I'm a better teacher? The continuum and other evidence that we're going to talk about today. Am I a better teacher in May than I am then? Any of you think that you have any room to grow as a teacher? Right? And if you think that you're at the top of the heap, let me remind you of Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps, 28 gold medals, 23 of them were gold. And I get that because he was a swimmer, he could enter multiple events, but most medals ever. In my opinion, if he's not the greatest Olympian, certainly the greatest swimmer of all time. And somebody may come and knock him off that throne, but right now he's at the top of the heap. As he was beginning to get really super competitive, he moved to Wisconsin. Who wants to move to Wisconsin? He moved to Wisconsin to be close to his swim coach. In addition to having a swim coach, he had a strength and conditioning coach and a nutrition coach. And then he would travel to Colorado Springs to work out in the Olympic facilities where they, at elevation, 7,000 feet, just to get better capacity for his lungs. And then he had some kind of mechanism that would hold on to him as he's swimming down the lane to slow him down, and he set all kinds of records in that field too. All of these things going, he has a personal manager, right? A sports psychologist, all in an effort to shave 3/100ths of a second off the 50 flop. I mean, I'm not sure I go through that effort for 3/100ths of a second, but he did, and that's why he was the best ever. We're going to ask you, as great as you are today, how can you get better? And how can we measure that? This continuum is a big part of that. And to be honest, if you could get on it this afternoon, that would be great. We need you to get on this right away. If you can't get the other 2 documents done in time for your ILP writing, get this one done. This really does point the needle to the elements that you want to write goals for. To continue.
Can you just put the classroom?
I will in a slide later on. Yes.
So should the classroom already show up?
Not yet.
Okay, just making sure.
You haven't joined yet.
No, I just wanted to make sure that. No, it's okay.
All right. This is a teacher goal, and I'm going to explain that in ILP writing. So you don't have to do this yet until you come to ILP training with your mentor. And we will do it together that night on an old school piece of paper and a pen, and we peer edit, and then later on you put it into the classroom and actually type it in on the document. So just know that this is coming, but you don't do it yet. We will do it together, okay? And it is about you as a teacher. In fact, I am to the point of almost writing a sentence starter. I will improve, deepen, better understand, strengthen, okay? It's about you as a teacher. In October, you're going to list all kinds of ways of how am I going to learn about my goal? And we call that a pathway. And some of the things are, so you'll know, your mentor is going to come and observe you at least 4 times throughout the year. That's part of your pathway. And I'm going to require you to go out and do observations. And I'll explain the process and the sub-finding and all that in a moment. But I want you to know that you're going to be required to go out and watch somebody else teach as it relates to your goal. I want to learn how Kagan strategies really work with transitions, or how do you use a cooperative learning group with assignments so that each kid is engaged, or I'm really concerned about my procedures. It takes me 9 minutes to transition from English to math, or from passing out books to getting out how do I improve all that? We want you to go see it, and then implement it, and then have it affect your teaching. So we call that a pathway. I'll explain all this again later, so I'm just going to barely touch on it today. And then we're going to have an outcome that you write in October that's based on student outcomes. So it's kind of weird, but here's what we say in MIC. It is teacher growth through the lens of student outcomes. How do we know you're a better teacher? Well, if we had brought you in and the Fresno Bee was going to write a big old article about Teacher of the Year for Madera County, would they say, and she was able to lower referrals from 30 a year to 6, and her transitions went from 9 minutes to 4, and would that be in the newspaper article? What would probably be in there would be, and her test scores are 20% better than state average for the same demographic, and 50% better for her district. That's what they write about. How do we know you're a good teacher? Because your students are learning, right? So we're going to say, I am going to deepen my understanding of technology in the classroom as relates to student learning. Because I'm going to use technology in the classroom, students are probably going to be better engaged, so I'm going to use Quizlets, I'm going to use, what's another one? AirPod, Nearpod, Cahoots, right? I'm going to use Chromebooks and then graphic organizers, and students will be able to, or students will improve 20% on the summative assessment. Having said that, in this box, you need to have a pre-assessment that's going to occur right about now, and then you can either A, have a series of summative assessments, chapter tests, unit tests, or one big one in March. So I was thinking through this, and I'll explain this at training. If I was an English teacher, maybe I wanted to work on critical thinking throughout the year. So I would give a writing assessment now with no teaching, and then I would do a whole bunch of teaching for a whole semester and a half, and then I would do another writing assessment again, looking at critical thinking. And did students improve from A to B? So kindergarten, we can talk about sight words or letter recognition or words. In math, we might look at unit tests. Are my students getting better grades progressively throughout the semester? Or we're looking at writing, and maybe I'm using a rubric, and they're going to improve 20% on the rubric, that kind of thing. I promise we'll go over that again at ILP writing. But I also kind of believe in the principle of let me get it out there, and then we'll come back and spiral it around, and I'll teach you it again. And you're going to look at me like, I heard this already, I know. But I want to get you to master it, all right? So this is coming in, and it's due soon. We have, I want to go to the journal. When you write your goals, you're going to pick 2. In a moment, I'm going to talk about early completion option. You still pick 2. If you're a second year, you still pick 2. And you get to choose from the CSTP's standards 1 through 5. We don't write to standard 6, that's professional development, which is what this program is all about. So 1 through 5, you get to choose your 2 goals. And if you want to choose the same standards next year, that's okay. You get all that kind of choice. So far I've said that you have a site admin consultation, and you have that individual development plan or transition document and the continuum. And then I mentioned that you have your ILP, which is broken into 2 parts. The next thing you have, so that's 4 that kind of come up right in a row real fast. And then once we get that through, it settles down. I promise that our program's not as intense as your preliminary programs that you just went through. And how many of you had the 4 TPAs? How many of you had the 2 TPAs? How was the 2 TPAs?
Sucks.
It's big and long and rigorous. And did you have to do a video component with it?
Yes.
Yes.
Like 5 videos.
5 videos.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work, isn't it? I promise. Here's one of the things I understand is that adding to your burden isn't support. Requiring a whole bunch of meetings and a whole bunch of documents doesn't help you to get better as a teacher, it just helps you check the boxes. We have really looked at that closely. We want a program that supports you and encourages you, but doesn't cause nightmares because it's Sunday night and I said something recently. Okay? These first couple of documents that we've asked are pretty important because how do I know what I want to get better at as a teacher? And all that we're trying to do is point that compass towards, hey, look at these standards right here, you scored yourself here. Let's see if we can grow those out this year. All right? That's the plan. This is the execution. I'm going to ask for 6 journals. End of September, October, November, January, February, March. 6 journals. Where does this information come from? The first level comes from when you, well, it all comes from meeting with your mentor. And I have mentioned already that we call it just in time. There are a bunch of things that you're going to talk about, like how do I do this? How do I get this kid referred? How do I move forward on, how do I order this thing? Where's the curriculum? How do I don't know what I'm doing. Or even, what's the Halloween policy? Can I dress up as a costume? No. Okay. Can my kids? Is there a certain type, right? What's the foggy day schedule procedure? I honestly had one teacher one year think that foggy day meant they didn't have to come to school until 10 o'clock. That's good. Okay. All that's part of what we call just in time. And what we need you to do as you're meeting with your mentor, is have an old school notebook and you're just jotting some things down. Because you're probably, if you're like me, going to wait till the very last minute to take care of it, and you're going to need to remember what you talked about. Some of you are really smart and ambitious, and you will actually break this document out and type on it as you're meeting with your mentor. That would be great. I know that I would have that intent and never follow through, so I just know who I am. The second is the long-term analysis. What are you talking about as it relates to those goals? Hey, I talked about I'm going to literacy training on Wednesday evening, and I learned this, and I'm going to apply it in my classroom. And then we're going to ask you, well, if you went to ILP or literacy training, tell me, I went to ILP, that's your evidence that you're submitting here, and you're going to tell me how it relates to your goal and how it's informing your teaching. We believe, based on their last 3 years, this takes about an hour to hour and a half a month to complete. So you see where we put the focus back on your mentoring. You have to meet with your mentor 1 hour a week. But I have an assignment for you after we get through this initial flurry of about once a month. Okay? And all you're really doing is reflecting. Is what I'm doing working? Is it effective? Is it causing outcomes to change? To be honest, this is what great teachers do all the time. They just may not write it down. Think about you that are in secondary, and first period went horrible, but second period a little better, then you got a break and you thought some things through, and third and fourth and seventh period, I hit it out of the park. Of course, now you have to come back tomorrow and reteach periods 1 and 2, but you made adjustments on the fly, and you started thinking about how is this happening, and what strategies do I need, and why is this not working? And all I'm asking you to do is write that down. Make a record of it. Okay? So we have some initial activities, we have the journals, and then we have, and I think I skipped some things here. This is the reflective guide that I give to your mentors. It's not a secret, but I'm not going to give it to you, but if you grabbed one, I would care less. But you can see that here in August, we're talking about your culture, your procedures. In November, we're going to ask you if you went to the dentist. Say, what? Yeah, we're going to ask you if you went to the dentist. Almost all of you have Delta Dental as your dental plan. And if you use it the first year, they cover 70, and the second is 80, and the third is 90, and the fourth is 100%. If you use it now, before December 31st, that's year 1. And if you use it in January, that's year 2. So we even talk about silly things like that. How retirement is in there. I mean, all kinds of great things that are just in time. And the long-term analysis. Your mentor is prompted to think about things that they're supposed to be asking.
Will that journal be in Google Classroom
Yes,
platform?
it is.
Okay.
And with the due date. Okay. So what's the big thing that ends up in May? So I told you that there were journals through the end of March. In April, I want you to spend time getting ready for a presentation. And then in May, you're going to come back here and stand in front of a panel, and you'll have 20 minutes to present your teacher growth. And that evidence is going to come from the journals. Each time we ask you to do a journal, you're putting in 2 to 3 pieces of evidence. Hopefully it adds up 14 to 21 by the end of the year. And then we're not going to want 21 pieces of evidence on your presentation. We ask for the ESPN highlights of your year, and we have a whole training designated for that in the spring called presentation training. It's not how do I use Google Slides, it's what our expectations are for that presentation. And we will put you in front of 2 or 3 other mentors that you've never met, and hopefully an administrator, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do it because I don't like standing and doing public speaking. And I get that. I get that. You're like, I can stand in front of 6th grade all day long, but adults, forget it. I get nervous. I know. However, we also know this about your career. No matter where you're at, you're going to have to stand and deliver in front of adults, whether it's back to school night, with your PLC or grade levels, because you went to some awesome thing and they want to hear about it, or you have data to share, or you have a crazy idea that they need to hear. You may have to present to your entire site, because what you're doing is awesome and the rest of the staff need to hear it. You may be called to go to a cabinet meeting as a board, or even make a presentation at the board meeting because you want to add a new class, or they want to know about your data and why it's rocking the world. At some point in your career, guys, you're going to stand up in front of adults. So we're going to make this happen now, where the cost isn't quite so high and it's not quite as scary. I know you're still going to be nervous, so let me tell you what the possible outcomes of that presentation will be. Either the panel will say, we found evidence of teacher growth, yay, and I'm finished with induction, or I go on to my second year. Or the panel will say, we did not find enough evidence of teacher growth. It's graded on a rubric, and it drills down to specific parts of your presentation where something was missing. Most of the time, I will ask you to call me, and we'll talk about it, and as soon as I'm satisfied, thumbs up, we move on. Occasionally I'll have you say, well, why don't you add that into your presentation, so I'll have you rewrite some things, particularly somebody's missing some data, or student analysis of work, or something like that. Once in a while, and I really, it's not this kind of crowd that I'm thinking about. I have this new wave of millennial people have a different viewpoint of life than those that were not millennials. And there is a high level of confidence, even when it's not warranted. Back in the day, we would say that was arrogance. But I have millennial teachers that look at their mentor and say, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this. No, you don't got this. And it shows up on the presentation. And occasionally we've had to ask the person to come back and make a new presentation because they jacked up their presentation. They just didn't put the time and effort into it. And really what we found was a strong correlation between getting the journals done in a meaningful way, on time, results in a pretty good presentation. When teachers have tried, and we know you're human, we know what's going on, have just, let me just check the box, and what have I got to do to get through this program, and I don't really care, I've already got it all figured out. When they do that, we catch them. You can't fake it. You can't. There's just, the way that we built the system is you need to be reflective and genuine about that. Having said that, let me tell you my personal philosophy about life. I think there are two kinds of people. One that looks through a window and one that looks in a mirror. The one that looks through the window says, well, the reason I'm failing is because I have all these kind of students, or there's too many ELs in my class, I have too many SPEDs, but I don't have the co-lab teacher, or my administrator doesn't like me. I hear that a lot. The curriculum, somebody said I didn't have books, the curriculum is all jacked up, or they just changed curriculum and nobody knows what they're doing, or my PLC is fighting and they're always in disarray, and that's why I failed as a teacher. All these other, I'm looking through the window and I'm pointing. If I'm looking through a window, I'm not going to make any changes because I'm thinking I got it together, everyone else is messed up. But a person that looks in a mirror says, what is it about my educational environment that allows Larry to get out of his seat anytime he wants? Or allows this, I will even tell you that the standards in your classroom are whatever you allow students to get away with. Those are your standards. We talk about that a lot in classroom management, putting this responsibility back on. Let me even make it more personal. I was talking with my wife, and I knew that I had the right message, that it needed to be said, and it was the right time to say it. Unfortunately, I also had the wrong tone of voice and the wrong facial expression. Any chance my wife heard me? No chance. Come on. I could have looked through a window and said, well, my wife's Latina and she's stubborn and hot-headed, and I could have. She's just arrogant. She's 12 years younger than me. She's, you know, she's kind of a millennial. I got it. This kind of. I could have put all the blame on her. Would I have changed my outlook and the way I communicated with her? No. So I thought, how did I contribute to the breakdown of this conversation? When I'm a little irritated, I get excitable. So I wrote a saying. When I get excitable, I need to be quietable. I know it doesn't make sense to you, but here, work with me here. When I get irritated or a little excited, I need to shut up. because I don't have to apologize for anything I'm saying when I'm not saying anything. You ever said something and then regretted later saying it?
Yes.
Are we really good about pulling out our sword of words and cutting somebody up? And then they're bleeding all over the place, and you go back and apologize, but they're still bleeding, but you feel good about it? Come on, apologize, get over it. Guys, let me give you a clue if you haven't figured this out. We're talking about getting married. Women have a videotape memory system, and they file it in categories. And when you make a mistake, okay, I accept your apology, but they file it. And then you make another mistake that's very similar, they're going to go back to the first one and replay it, and then the second one, right? And then down the road, they get videotape, and it goes on for an hour because everything is remembered, and like they're not going to let it go this time. I'm telling you. You'll have great memories because, guys, we're totally different. Why, right? Have you ever watched two boys in 4th grade fight? And what happens the next day? Best friends again, right? We just slug each other and get over with it. Girls who have a fight in the 4th grade are literally getting suspended in the 7th grade because they're fighting again. I didn't understand that. I'm learning that once those words are out of my mouth, I can't bring them back. And I also know that if I'm upset, even if my words are right, my facial expression causes her to be defensive because she realizes that I'm upset. So when I get excitable, I get quietable. I tried it. Now I can apologize for being a little stinky, pouty, upset, but at least I'm quiet. And I can apologize. I'm sorry I was upset yesterday. Oh, yeah, I understand. I just let you alone. Good. But let me share it with you what I've been thinking about. And now because I've taken the emotion out of it and my face is relaxed, I can say what needs to be said, and lo and behold, it worked. She actually changed her mind. All because I looked in the mirror and said, what can I do, or why am I contributing to the breakdown of this communication? I'm going to ask you to do that all year. What can I do about my educational environment to make things better? That's the whole point of what we're trying to do. How can I get better? And by the way, that could help you with your evaluation. If we can make you a better teacher, or help you to get a better teacher, you're going to get a better evaluation. We want to retain you. We want you to keep your job. We're working hard at making sure that you have a job next year. You're going to come and present your evidence of growth here. And you don't even have to bring your computer or anything. We got it all set up. All you have to do is come in and log in with your Google name, boom, 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 and away we go. And then we'll let you know. And again, it's not catastrophic. You know, but I will tell you that many teachers get into teaching because they were good at education. They were straight A students. And then they come to me, and you're saying, no. Now some graduate magna cum laude, I graduated praise the Lottie. First failure sometimes happens because we tell them that we didn't find enough, and some of our teachers fall apart and are really mad and upset. And I kind of go through it and go, oh, well, I didn't know that was supposed to be there, or I forgot to put that in. Okay, well, this is why we're calling you. All right. We put out a sample of this document and a template. And all you have to do is plug and play. And don't worry about it now. Just know it's coming. That's what you need the evidence for in those journals. We'll have training for that in the spring, and I'll explain everything that I want, with plenty of time for you to build it. So we do the training late February, March. We give you the whole month of April just to write it, practice it, and make sure you're ready to go. And then we have you come in the last week of April and the first 2 weeks of May. All right, any questions so far about the assignments that I've told you? I told you that you have site admin, consultation, the bridging document, and the continuum. We call that the pre-ILP assignment. You have the ILP, which is broken down into 2 parts, 6 journals, and the presentation. That's it. That's all of the documents that I'm ever going to ask you for. I have 2 other trainings that you're required to come to, and 1 presentation. So there's 3 times you'll have to drive here for the rest of the year. Okay? Because we understand things are going crazy at you. We're putting all the pressure on the mentor to help you manage all the things that are going on. Having said that, you are required to meet with them 1 hour a week. Okay? And we're not going to pay you for your time. You're not getting a timesheet today, and you're not getting a timesheet to meet with your mentor 1 hour a week. Why? It is a credentialing activity. And we're living off of the standards that CTC has given us, and this is what they said, it's an hour a week. Okay. But the good news is, you should be getting this program for free, or a very low cost. We do charge our county partners a little bit, like $750 a year per candidate. Some, I understand, of our outside districts are actually passing that cost along to you, and that's unfortunate, but it's still very minimal. We have some induction programs in the state of California that are charging $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year. You're not here. Were you one of those?
No, I have friends that live in San Diego that paid $3,000 for their induction.
Say that again louder.
I had a friend in San Diego that paid like $3,000 for her induction program.
Fresno County charges $2,000.
Yeah.
Fresno County's now charging.
4,000, that's Madera County. When I was offered the job, I asked, and they were using Fresno County. It was 4,000. They pay 2,000, and we were required to pay the other 2,000.
But the first 2,000 is actually for the mentor, because she gets paid for her time.
So there may be still some costs that they're passing, but by and large, it's pretty inexpensive. If you're Madera Unified, it's free. We want to make that happen for you. Okay? All right. Any questions about the mechanics of the induction program? I'll show you the join codes in a moment for the classroom, but I did a couple of things in here.
Are you going to go over the 1 year completion program?
Yes, it's on the list in just a few minutes. Yep. In fact, that's also part of EdCode, but I have to explain that to you, and offer. Yes. And we have all the applications. We just paper clip them and we'll just go, so we'll pass those out. Do you know how to push that thing on the wall? You tap it, and then it'll say override. Hit that button, and then it'll give you some time. Would you put 3 hours on there? Thank you. Okay. Why do you have to do induction? I mean, for Pete's sake, you just went through this amazing, incredibly rigorous preliminary program in which you had to, maybe you had to pass RICA, you had to pass your certainly all the exams in the class, you paid all kinds of money for it, you had a mentor, you had 2 mentors. I mean, there's a lot going on. Why do we have to do this all over again? And so we want to explain that to you right now. We want to help you with your transition from being in a program to being in a career. And some of our teachers, as I mentioned in the past, are brand new. Not only is their first career, it's their first full-time job. A lot going on here. Okay? We want to help you with that transition. And we want to retain you. Why? Selfishly, it costs $35,000 to hire you over 5 years. With all the training that we're going to provide for you, with all the research that we're giving with you, the supervision, from starting with the screening of your application all the way through monitoring your credentials at HR, there's a cost associated with hiring you. We don't want that $35,000 to walk away and go to another district. Okay? We want to make sure that you still have a job next year. I will tell you that in some cases, a mentor in your classroom can be a career changer. I had a teacher a number of years ago, and the mentor walked in about now, and she said to herself, "Oh no," when they began to have a conversation. But unbeknownst to her, her administrator came to me and said, "Oh no, I'm going to let her go at Christmas," which is unheard of. Well, they made some improvements really quick, and the administrator says, "Well, she's better, but I'm going to let her go and at the end of the year." She made some more improvements, working with the mentor, and I was a part of that. And the administrator said, "Well, all right, I'll give her 1 more year, because you get 2 years before your tenure." So, all right, I'll give her a second. And lo and behold, she was able to master, it was really classroom management, and it got to the point where she was named department chair and now academic coach and all kinds of crazy things. She's a rising star in her district. All because I believe the mentor went in right away and said, "Oh gosh, we need to get this done right now." I believe that your mentor can help change the course of your career and certainly help you go through the evaluation process in the spring successfully. What we also found is that your mentors often become lifelong friends. And there's a reason for that. We ask our mentors not only to talk about your goals and what's going on in the classroom, but off the books we tell them we also want them to be an emotional nurse. Remember I told you that they are contracted to have confidential conversations with you. And we know that if things are messed up on the outside of class, things are probably going to be messed up inside the class. We've had candidates go through divorces, or had significant somebody that's been in their life for 10 years walk away, or they lost their family dog that they've had for 16 years, or a myriad of other things, including their own personal health issues. We've had somebody with leukemia come through our program. We have a very common element that happens to our younger female staff. They get the Egyptian flu. Have you heard of this? They become mummies. That's the best laughs I've had all 7 weeks. Thank you. Medical issues come up, and we help you work through all those kind of things. Okay? Sometimes our mentors hold an emotional bag for you to emotionally vomit in, and then they clean it up, put it away, and get back to work. We told them that on occasion, you don't need to talk about anything that has to do with MIC or school or anything else. If you need to just let that person vent and get some things out and solve some problems, that's what your mentor's for. So we want to help you with your transition and help you with your profession. We also want to improve student achievement. Okay? We want to improve student achievement. And we're going to look at student work as part of that outcome and pathway. One of the pathways you can choose is examining student work. Okay? So let me, do you remember what I told you was my job before I became a teacher? All right, so I'm going to preach right now. Here we go. Do you know what the median income is for people in Madera County?
$45,000.
A little more, it's about 40. What's the state average? About 65,000. Okay. In Madera Unified alone, 90% or about 89.5% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. They are designated as socially economically disadvantaged. Okay. Do we have a high level of EL students in our classroom? Of course, school go. What's an EL? Not Bass Lake. No, I ain't got nothing. But in Madera Unified, I was at Washington yesterday, and he said 60% of his students at Washington Elementary are designated EL students. Do we have a high level of SPED students? Foster care is another one, some other things that are going on. I will tell you my personal opinion, y'all. I think it's poverty is driving the bus and creating what we see in the newspaper called an achievement gap. An achievement gap means that if we look at some subgroups, Caucasian students, Asian students, and other subgroups, students of color, students that are in poverty, students that are EL, students that are in foster care, they're performing at a lower level than the students that are Caucasian and Asian. I get that some of it is culture, but I really believe most of it is socioeconomics. And I don't believe that one subgroup is better at learning than another group. But I do believe that one subgroup may have prior knowledge than another lacks. And I'll give you an example. I think of myself as being in middle class. My wife and I took our kids to Hearst Castle and to Winchester Mystery House this summer. And so we go to Hearst Castle. I started talking to them about William Randolph Hearst and his media empire. He was kind of the Jeff Bezos of the day, if you will. And the fact that he kind of started the Spanish-American War. What? So we talked about yellow journalism and the ship that sank in Cuba, and then the territories that now were in Spanish control but now became under American control. And then it really didn't change until World War II. And some of the, but by and large, that's why Puerto Rico is still a territory of the United States. And so I explained that to them. And then we went to Winchester Mystery House. You've been there? I mean, Sarah Winchester, she's blacked out of her mind, right? But we talked about the gun that won the West, and we talked about the Civil War and the Indian Wars, and some of the tragedy that happened, and all the things that happened with the Winchester rifle and handguns. Now when my students are in class, or my kids are in class, and a teacher says, so today we're going to be talking about propaganda and yellow journalism. They are now activating prior knowledge in my kids. I'm telling you that, that a family that's living at $40,000 a year in Madera doesn't have the resources. Doesn't mean that they wouldn't if they could, but they don't have the resources to go to the Winchester Mystery House. There were 5 of us, and I was looking the other day, it was $350 just to get in. We still went out to lunch and drove a car and had a great day, but that was an expensive day, right? If you're parents and you know what it's like and you try to provide, how many of you are parents? How many of you have over 100 books in your house just for your kids, right? And you have a laptop, and you have a Chrome, a tablet, and you have a phone, all of it gets internet access that your students don't have when they're living in poverty. Furthermore, data says that poverty and crime and misbehavior in the classroom has a strong correlation. It's not causational, but there is a correlation. Now, I have found personally that if a student can't read, they find all kinds of other defense mechanisms to make sure you can't figure that out. And they become the class clown in the class or troublemaker in the class. And their whole goal is, please don't ever pick on me to read in class. I'd rather be sent to the office. Okay? Yes?
So one field trip that I took my first year of teaching that I'm doing again this year is Monterey Bay Aquarium.
Nice.
It's free for field trips. There's no admission fee for teachers or students. I found it was cheaper than going to the Fresno Chaffee Zoo, because the Fresno Chaffee Zoo, you have to pay full admission for teachers and students, and then if you want like a behind the scenes classroom, whatever, then it's more expensive on top of that. For the Monterey Bay Aquarium, you don't pay for admission at all. It's just food on the way there and gas.
And actually, 1 year after we went on a field trip with the kids, my wife and I bought season tickets to Monterey. We went like 5 times. And then my son was standing at the gate. Have you ever been there outside in the outdoor tidal pool? He's kind of dangling his foot. And okay, Josh, it's time to go. He goes to shoot. Somewhere in the Pacific garbage patch off of Hawaii is my son's shooting. There is an achievement gap because if you identified some of these subgroups in your classroom. So I have Bass Lake here today that say, I may not have any else student, but you got all kind of poverty going on out there. Coarse Gold has all kinds of poverty. There's all kinds of poverty everywhere we go in Madera County. That doesn't mean that there isn't rich as well, but by and large, that this is an issue for you. Many of you have EL students in your classroom. We find that our EL students, once they cross that barrier and are designated, they actually outperform our English only students. That's just data. But if you look at the dashboard, at least from Madera Unified, 30% of our students are proficient in English on those standardized tests. And only like 15 or 20, something like, I think it was as low as 16%, maybe it was a little higher, are proficient in math at grade level. There is a gap, guys. And we want to help. That means that students need to learn more in 1 year than a normal student would learn in a year, because they have to catch up. You don't have time for Fun Fridays. You don't show Star Wars on the Friday before Thanksgiving. You don't tell them, hey, we got 10 minutes, here's free time, or get out your book and read something, or work on your English, I know it's math class. We don't have time for that. One of the things we want you to do in your lesson plan is always plan for more things than you could ever get done in a lot of time that you have for your lesson. Always something else. There is an achievement gap with our students. That's the challenge. The benefit is, or the reward, is that when you can get a student to soar, they will love you for life. When you connect with a kid and make a difference, when you get them to read at level, you've saved their life. Look at the literacy rates at our men that are in prison in Chowchilla. It's abysmal. If you can get a student to read at grade level, you've stirred, they may not even realize it, but you have changed the course of their life. We could take you and put you in Clovis and you could have great scores. But does that mean you're a great teacher? I think you take the best teachers and put them in the worst environments. I even had a teacher complaining about that yesterday. Yeah, they always give me the worst kids. You must be a great teacher. We only put the best with the worst. Why would I take a bad teacher and put them with bad students? Why would I take an average teacher and put them? I need my best to be working with these kids. I hope you're challenged and starting to think, because when you reach these kids, their heart's going to melt, and so will yours. And the paycheck won't even matter. You realize that this kid started at first grade reading level in fourth grade, and now they're reading at level. And they're having fun in class because they can actually understand what's going on. And maybe for the first time, you made a connection with them. We watched a video the other day about this kid, third, fourth grade, who's fidgeting all the time. I don't know why we fidget all the time. I know it's a stereotype. Did you fidget?
Right now, my feet.
My stepson fidgets so much as we're driving the car, and he kept getting in trouble, got sent to the office. The principal said, when you feel that urge, why don't you sit on your hands? And this is an adult now saying, it worked for about 4 minutes, and then that's fidgeting again. And then the teacher yelled at him, I want to see you after class. Okay, he's scared. And the teacher looks at him and says, I don't think you're a problem. I'm going to cry if I think about too much. I think you're a drummer. And out of his drawer, he pulls out a pair of drumsticks and hands them to the kid, who in a moment has his life redirected. I'm not a problem, I'm a drummer. And pours his energy into it, and now he's like this rock star drummer that performs all over the place and goes crazy with the drums. And very successful at school. Once he realized I'm not, you know what, we have all got labels. Did you know that? You carry labels with you. Some you assigned yourself, and some others assigned for you. And some experience. And I'd be willing to bet that those labels are negative. Those labels are probably negative. And you live up to, you look for evidence of, and called self-fulfilling prophecy. I am, and therefore you are. Even though it's not true. Here's an example. Wife comes home, and as soon as she comes, and she's starting to get ready for the day, and her husband comes home from work, and immediately he runs into the restroom, and he seems agitated, and every day. And she finally just breaks down crying. I'm so sorry, I'm annoying. I don't mean to be annoying. That was the label that she had over her head. I am annoying. My husband is annoyed with me. And he breaks down crying. Annoying? What are you talking about? So she described how he came home and how his physical body language worked and how the words that he said were, and the pacing, even the pacing of the sentences was different initially when he got home versus later on in the day. And he says to his wife that he loves dearly, are you kidding me? You're the best part of my day. But you wouldn't understand. I don't tell you everything that goes on at work, and this person's mad at me about this, and this is happening here, and I didn't make my sales quota, my boss is on me about that, and I got a bad meeting, and this is happening every time. I'm irritated and annoyed from what I'm leaving behind at work, and I just need a few minutes to get it out of my system. But she believed that she was annoying. He flipped the label and said, no, you're the best part of my day. And she began to live up to that level. And their intimacy in their marriage was amazing. And you carry those same kind of labels. We want to scratch those off and reapply. And we want to do it with evidence. Not, I feel better as a teacher. I know I am, because look, I've closed the achievement gap with my students. I've worked them harder than they ever thought they could. I broke through with some kids that didn't think that after 4 weeks that we could ever get this kid to speak in class. And I'm up, that's better than a paycheck. It really is. These are the kind of things that we want to help you discover through our induction program. And why we work so hard at this. There's a lot of things that happen. We want to help you raise achievement level. We also are, part of my job is to only present those that are qualified as teachers, so I actually have a kind of judgment in that. Like I said, I'll come and see you. I'm not going to judge you in 20 minutes. There's no way. But we'll look at your completion of documents and that sort of thing. Our mentors actually get something out of this beyond the friendship. They grow because you're exposing them to, by the way, you're excited about teaching. But if you've been around a 20-year veteran, you're like, oh, it's not good. You're helping inspire us to be better in the classroom. Okay? And we're going to tell you that it's a needs-based program based on where you're at today as a teacher. Some of you have been asking about and are anxious for me to talk about early completion option that's part of state ed code. So let's talk about that. We'll get that in. Early completion option. Early completion option has two criteria from the California Standard of Teaching Credential, CTC, California, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Got that. Their two criteria are that you are experienced and you are exceptional. And they leave each program to define what that means. So I'll explain to you how we have defined experienced and exceptional. Experienced, we look at least 2 years of experience in the classroom as a teacher of record. In the classroom as a teacher of record. So some of you might be your first year as a teacher of record, but you've been a substitute for 6, 7, 8 years. It's night and day different. There are some expectations that you have as a teacher that you don't have as a substitute teacher. And things are going to come at you in a hurry. There's going to be things that are asked of you that we don't ask of substitutes. Okay? So we need you to be a teacher of record for 2 years. Now some of you have started, come through our PIC program and you have some things going on. Come talk to me. We kind of can fuzz the line a little bit on that, all right? But not much. It requires that you have a positive evaluation last year. So we need to see that. You have to submit your evaluation. Substitute teachers don't get evaluated. Okay? You may have changed sites or districts. We still need to see last year's evaluation, but we need a letter of recommendation and a portion of your application filled out by your current administrator. Okay? So we say 2 years in the classroom as a teacher of record experience, and that's as far as I can go. We ask your evaluator, administrator, to determine if you're exceptional. Because I look around the room today, yeah, they're all exceptional. That's not really a fair assessment. Okay? So you need to get a letter of rec from your administrator and have them fill out a portion of the application I'm going to pass out in just a minute. After that, there's an interview with me, and we'll sit down and talk, and I'll also come and observe you. Okay? So it is an application process. It is not automatic. But that is an option for those of you that think, I only need 1 year of support, even though all the wonderful things you talked about today sounds great. I only need 1 year. And because I'm exceptional. You have to think that of yourself. And I have the experience to back it up. All right. For those of you that believe that you want to at least think about more or fill out the application for early completion option, please raise your hand and I will hand you an application. This is your first year? Is that what you're doing? One of the things we teach in classroom action is to teach kids how to read. It sounds stupid, right? But I just reminded me that we actually teach that. Oh, you want to do it differently?
Is that the last round? 77? Well, he said it's 47. Oh, I thought you said that was the last bracket.
All right.
But we're counting.
Hey folks, we're out in the home stretch. Let's see if we can get you out of here. One of the things I'm going to pass over is tell you how to set up your class for the first day of school, since that's like way in the rearview mirror. So we're almost done. All right. I will tell you that it's due the 30th of September. Here we are, what, the 7th? That's a short amount of time. And I'm going to tell you that this absolutely has to be turned in on time. What I need is the application back. And if you tell me I'm still waiting on my my letter from my administrator, but he said he's gonna write it, or I have my evaluation, but it's in the mail, or whatever, I can understand that. But get me the application back by the 30th of September. By hook or crook, I need it. And I'm gonna tell you that I love to accommodate and try to make exceptions for everybody, but this just has caused more issues for us than I can tell. So this is a hard line in the sand. If you give it to me on October 5th, I'm going to tell you you missed the deadline. I hate being that brutal, but I'm going to do it. You've got to get it back to me on the 30th of September. Okay? At the very least, the application, and your administrator has a little bit that they can fill in for you. At least that tells me that the administrator is going to write the letter for you, right? And we can go from there. It used to be that ECO did 2 years of work in 1 year. And then when I took over, I said, that doesn't make sense. And we did 1.5 years of work in 1 year. And I continually look back at the standards and evaluation, what we are doing in comparison to the standards. And we looked at it and said, look, the idea of an early completion is that they have the experience that is in lieu of another year of support. So we are going to make you do 1 year of work in 1 year. Having said that, you will be in the first year MIC class. We don't designate ECO and MIC. You are 1 year in, because your requirements and documentation is exactly the same as a first year teacher. There's no difference. So we either have a first year class or a second year class. If you are early completion option, you're still going to be in the first year class. All right. There are some documents that we need you to fill out, so we'll fill those out together. The first you may have already done at your HR, and they may have sent that over. But every now and again we find that we have a hole, and so I would like for you to fill out the notification, eligibility, and responsibility that you're in against program. And you can hold on to those and go through them if you haven't changed your mind. You don't turn them in if you still have them. And I do need your Social Security and birthday. I need to get a new drift boat for my fly fishing, and I'm going to use the best. No, I'm just kidding. We never really look at these until we have to deal with CTC on your behalf. And the only way I can access your documents is with your Social Security and birthday. Okay? And when we do your recommendations, county people, I'm the one that literally sits behind the computer and does your recommendation. Your district cannot do that recommendation. We are not an authorized induction program. So the only way I can do that is with your Social Security birthday. So don't be afraid. It goes in a file cabinet and no one ever looks at it. It does not go back to some other site or school or anyone else. It's never shared. It says in this document, the person verifying your credential, that's us, so don't worry about it. You do not have to fill that part in. So on the bottom part, it makes you make a choice. I am going to be an induction, I am not going to be an induction. If you want your clear, you're probably going to sign the top one.
How do we know what our expiration date is?
It's 5 years from when it was recommended. Do you remember when you finished?
June.
June of this 2019? So it'll be July 2024. Along with the getting to know you activity, if you would put that in the center of your table, and those of you that are in second year and you put a little sticky note out there for me, slap your sticky on that on your form and put that in the center of the table. The second document I would like you to fill out is the roles and responsibilities. Memo of understanding. Would you please read through that carefully?
There we go.
Make sure you read it because it says in there that you're buying me lunch every Friday. It does say that you will.
McDonald's.
All right. In part of this, it says that if you need assistance, that it will be provided. So, if you are having questions or confused about the program, or you have you're going to turn something in late or whatever, I'm happy to work with you on that. I do find it ironic that my teachers who will never allow a student to turn something in late will turn something in 2 months late. All right? We do expect that you're going to turn stuff in late, but I also know that life happens. And so we'll work with you.
So, I've never understood how this, you want us to observe other classrooms.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we take that time as like sick time?
No. I'll explain that.
What?
No.
Okay.
And I'll explain that.
Okay.
Okay. I told you about if we need to reassign mentors, we'll do that. I need to tell you about one other thing. Some of you may be challenged to finish the program in time. There may be personal circumstances that arise. We talked about maternity is one, health issues. Maybe you find, kind of like where I'm at, my mom and dad, even though they're divorced, they live in town, need my help. And every now and again, I have to go to sit in the emergency room with them for days on end. Okay? Stuff happens fast, and I will work with you on that. If, however, you have procrastination disease and you just can't get it done, I'm going to let you know now that I will talk to your administrator about that. And if you're in Madera Unified, our HR director has said that this is a work condition working towards your credential. Because if you don't get a credential, then eventually you're going to let you go. But Kent is telling me that if you can't finish on time, he may make that choice for you. Okay? So please understand that there are consequences to starting the program and not finishing. But if you are struggling, we will bend over backwards to help make that accommodation for you and modification if we need to. And I know my state teachers are going, what? All right, sign date, put that in the center of the table. And then there's a Madera Induction Consortium interview with a bunch of little boxes. Let's go through these one by one. We define your hire date as the first day of school. The induction program and your responsibilities were described to you within 6 weeks of being hired or 6 weeks of school. Well, that would be today, so you can sign that one. I explained to you the requirements to get a clear credential. I explained why you are eligible to be in the program, including discussing your particular credential, whether you're a PIP, STIP, intern, or preliminary. And I think the earliest I heard somebody say they had a credential in 2008, is that right? Anyone else before that? If you earned your credential even before that, like in 2000 or below, then you'd have a different requirement to get it clear. You go back to school. Nobody's in that class. I explained to you the requirements and eligibility for ECO, including handing out those applications. I just mentioned that special assistance is available to you. I also mentioned that you will be monitored, and you're putting together a portfolio via Google Classroom. And I told you that I would work with you if extenuating circumstances arose. Like some of you that go on maternity sometimes end up taking a whole semester off. And so we then continue. I just met with somebody in that situation, and I created her own Google Classroom and her own assignments that are different than everyone else's because of that interruption. So we really do work hard to meet your needs and where you're at. If you would sign and date that and put that in the center of the table as well. Okay, let's talk about subs for a moment. If you are in Madera Unified, and I've asked you to go and observe other teachers, there is a sub-request form. But listen carefully. From today, the power vested in me by my district office to those in Madera Unified, you have permission to get a sub. I will not return this form to you once you send it to me, but it must have your admin signature on it. Okay? The code is professional leave, MIC, for Madera Unified. Professional leave, MIC. We get 6-8 of these a day. We will not be returning them back to you. Once we get them, we file them and compare and contrast our budget for subs, who's taking them, and if they're in the right category or not. But you do not need to take personal sick time to get a sub. County people, we make the county districts sign a memo of understanding. Among that, it says that they will pay for your mentor, and they will give you release time for MIC activities. Now, I think, it depends on transportation and how far you have to drive. I think you can see 2 teachers in a half a day, so a half a day sub is probably appropriate most of the time. You do not have to see teachers on your own site. And sometimes our administrators say, I only want you to see my people. And we respond, well, you're not getting a Pershing Elementary School credential, you're getting a California credential. We want you to see some other things. You may not implement them, but you may see something that will rock your world. Okay? So you're to at least to have 2 half-day subs in the fall and 2 half-day subs in the spring. And if you need more, there's more time available. But your districts have already known that you are taking professional leave as part of your credentialing activity.
I have to go to Fresno or Clovis to
That's
see a light
fine. So you may have to take a whole day. That's okay. But maybe you can see 2 in that whole day. Okay? And if there's any question, I'll call your superintendent for you.
Okay.
I don't have a problem yelling at a suit, especially if it's not mine.
Yeah. Who's responsible for setting up?
Great question. I want you to work with your mentor and talk to them about who should I see, and hopefully they're having conversations with admin. Hey, they're going to go see, they want to look at, and then you'll come up with a list of people that you see. But your mentor should be helping you plan that. And then you'll kind of let that teacher know, hey, we were interested in coming to see you. Is it tomorrow or next week a good day? And your administrator can say, by the way, Friday's a bad day to go observe teachers. It's Netherton relays. We've got so many teachers out for the relays that we don't have enough subs. We're probably going to have Plan C deployment. We might just meet in the gym. They can tell you that, hey, please don't leave on that day. I know we're going to be 15 teachers short. Okay. When's a great day? And then you can go on another time. That's why we want your admin to sign your sub-request form, and it also lets them know where you're going to be and what. Okay? Good questions. Any other questions?
So where are the forms?
In Google Classroom.
Okay. That's all.
So you have a sample in front of you, and if you want to, it's in one of the packets. It may be in your handbook. Of course, the back end. That it's in the classroom, so not to worry. That's the ECO. Let me have another. Like I said, 7 times. Usually we include it. Okay, not to worry. It's in the classroom, and only Madera Unified need it. Okay. All right. Collaboration logs. Your mentors are completing collaboration logs. You don't have to worry about doing that, except they need your signature. It's their timesheet. So a couple things about that. One, don't sign it if it's not accurate. Most of my mentors, 99% of them are awesome, but every now and again I have one who will come and say, I know we didn't meet the last 2 months, but I usually sign the same. Don't do it. I mean, that helps. We need to know. There's a problem. You haven't met for 2 months and you want to get paid? Come on now. The second thing is, I told you about Fresno Pacific, and they're going to ask for 45 hours of verification and induction, and the collab logs will help you get most of those hours. Okay, so then you can add them up, you know the dates, you've got all that going on. I've asked your mentors to give you a copy of the collaboration models. They're going to write bullet points about what you talked about. Talked about rearranging the room, talked about transitions, talked about gathering student work or examine student work for goal setting. Observe teacher on such and such a day. They're writing bullets. When you write your journals, I want them to be complete sentences. Why? Because we think you think a little deeper when you actually have to write a whole sentence versus a bullet point. And I will tell you another trend, if you will, is that our ladies write more on their journals and our guys write less. So it's really kind of curious to watch how that comes about. My readers may ask you, especially guys, could you give me a little more information about when we grade stuff in our Google Classroom, it's either a 1 or a 0. It's not, it's either you did it and met our standards or you haven't. And if you haven't, our readers will ask for you, would you please give me a little more information about, would you include, and they'll ask you to resubmit it. And we don't worry too much if it says resubmitted or late. We just want to know, did you meet the standards or not? Okay? So there's collaboration models. I mentioned the request for reassignment, and that is definitely in your handbook. And there's also a request for an extension that's in your handbook. But both of these start with a conversation with me. All right. We talked about the purpose of induction. It's to help you grow as a teacher and give you the support you need through the first couple of years. We talked about our goal is that you would have hard evidence of here I am in August and here I am in April. And we told you what the time limit is. It's a 2-year program, but some of you are interested in doing it a year, early completion option. And I mentioned that we don't want to burden you with the program. It's meant to be supported. That's why we don't have multiple meetings. You have 1 hour a week and 3 more meetings to come to you for the rest of the year. Here are the join codes. Write this down. If you're thinking you're going to be ECO, which class are you in? First year. There's only about 3 or 4 of you that said I did induction in another district, and I'm in year 2. Those only 3 of you wrote you a little sticky, you said I'm coming from another district. You are in year 2. The rest of you are all in year 1. When we put an assignment in there, it generates an email. All right, now let me explain a couple things about that. Madera Unified, you're good to go with your email. Some of my county school sites, you're good to go with your email from your district. The rest of you, and you're going to say, I tried to join, it wouldn't let me. There is some kind of electronic handshake that your district needs to do with my district that's way above my pay grade, which I have no comprehension or understanding of. But if you use a personal Gmail, it works. So if you're in my county, and you try to join with your district email and it won't let you, then either create or use a personal Gmail. Personal Gmails are easy. If you want to create one just for this class, you can do that, or whatever you want to do. But I guarantee you a personal Gmail will allow you to join the class. Some of my county schools, I think Chow High and elementary is good. Golden Valley, not so good.
What about McSauce?
I don't remember. I think it's a no.
We also have, at least at Madera South, we have Madera Unified emails also.
The Madera Unified emails work.
Okay.
They work all day long.
So you want me to give you that information?
Correct. Madera Unified emails, you can just join. All you do is go to Google, and there's those dots that have all those apps, and you drop one down, and it says Classroom, and you click on Classroom, and then there'll be a plus sign, and you click Join a Class. If you've never used it, it's pretty simple. If you're using it in your classroom, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Did everybody write it down? Mm-hmm. All right. You can see your eyes glazing over, and you've not had enough. There are multiple PDs that we're going to offer. We try to highlight, email those as frequently as possible. And we'll tell you that the classroom management one, in my opinion, I mean, I need it, but I'm biased right now. It's pretty great. Any questions? Yes.
We were talking about the substitute on the Frontline website, right?
That one, I haven't even created it, and I tried to, and it says no longer, available.
You gotta talk to admin right away, probably
Okay.
admin assistant,
Okay.
and they will contact IT right away. But you gotta have that for grades and for discipline as well as other things that you need to reset. Any other questions? I do. All right, I'm gonna skip through this. I will tell you this, you do need to pick, you're writing goals or have written goals for pre-evaluated purposes. In Madera Unified, we call it an addendum G, okay? But every district that I talk to, for the most part, writes a goal that they talk to their administrator about right about now, and then evaluated on later. A pre-evaluation goal. We believe that your ILP and your evaluation goals be identical, or at least have the same flavor. If you've already written it, you're kind of working on the same thing. Why? Because no one's going to talk to you about your pre-evaluation goals ever again. We're going to talk about your ILP goals every week. And this is evidence that you can show your administrator as it relates to your evaluation. Okay? Having said that, I want you to pick, if you can, an EL, a SPED, and one of your choosing. You're going to be examining that student work, and you're going to present that evidence at the end of the year. So you need to pick one. And we think if you have to pick students for your evaluation goals, that they ought to be the same. And if you don't have an EL, not to worry. All of you have SPED, even though if you don't know you have SPED. Did you know you have SPED in your class? They're the outlier. It could be emotional, it could be physical, it could be that they're way above everybody else, or it could be that they're 2 years or more behind in massive science, English. Okay? But you all have, some parents don't want their kids tested and labeled, even though you know, oh honey, let me give you a Mountain Dew.
Funny story. We have 6 kids adopted, well we have 8 kids, but we have 6 from China. And we had one that came home at 9 years old, and we identified her pretty quick as having a learning disability. And so I asked for an assessment, and the psychologist, Diane Mazzoni, did not want her assessed. Why would you want to put a label on her? Well, because she's already got a label. She's got a label as a stupid girl in class, right? And so she assessed her and didn't find anything except for, language. And then I said, okay, I want an independent evaluation at the diagnostic center. And they came up, because they brought in a Chinese interpreter, they came up with, several things that were preventing her from learning English that now qualified her for the help that she needed. And boy, does that make a difference. She's not the stupid girl in class anymore.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that other person had a bias to putting a label on a student.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know that my student, my own son was really diagnosed as autistic, Asperger's, so is what we used to call it, until he was in the 6th grade, 7th grade. We knew there was something, we thought it was attention deficit and maybe obsessive compulsive. We didn't really get it until one teacher took the time to journal about Joshua every day and say, these are the behaviors that I'm seeing. Every day he would write something down and journal about it. And then we went to the psychologist. We presented that evidence. By that time, my wife and I had figured it out because we Googled it and kind of looked at, these are the symptoms. I think he's autistic. And sure enough. But it also helped us dial in what kind of medication he needed, which really helped with some anxiety and with some hyperactivity things that are going. We're still working on that. And he's owned that. And yes, it's a label, but it's also I understand why I'm quirky and different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. We want you to pick an EL, a SPED, and one of your own choosing. We talked about that. We talked about the continuum. We haven't talked about the phases, but it's kind of funny and it's cute. But I'm gonna blow through it because I'm looking at glazed eyes and all kind of physical language. It says, "Steve, shut up." So And I'm not going to talk about the first day because that's way in the review. What I'm going to get to is the evaluation. The last thing I need from you. There it is. Oh, we found a trick. I don't know why, but when you use your phone, it seems to make a difference when you have this video on. So if you have an iPhone, you don't need the app. You just kind of take a picture and it knows what to do. If you have an Android, you need that the QWERTY, what do you ever call it, QR code reader, or you want me to blow that up so you can read it? And I'm assuming nowadays everybody has a phone with internet access. Did it work?
Work from home.
And once you're finished with that, pack up and you are free to go. Thank you for being here. Here we are, 11:45. I told you to get out of here. Thank you for coming. It's been fun being with you guys. Thank you. Tell me again.
Okay, so kind of like did things a little different with the combined intern program and the intern program. So I did a year of the induction program as an intern. So this is my first year of my preliminary. So I'm not sure if I should be able to teach it or not. Dr. Chang said